Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic. And we are on the precipice of the Final Fantasy set, which is very much exciting. And we also have some tournament results or some tournament experiences to chat about. So let's get into it. So my name's Graham, go by Hamox42 on the internet, and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen that I'm very excited to be spending today with. We got Carlo, aka C Favretto _ Jr. Hello, hello.
Yeah, it's true. What up, everybody? Good to see you.
All right. And then we're joined by the one and only, the incomparable Damien F16. How's it going, man?
Need you to be my hype man, Ham, always. I'll pay you to introduce me when I go to people's dinner parties, houses. It's great. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys being so awesome. I'm happy to hype up awesome folks. Just point out these people.
Well,
are great.
hopefully we have some new awesome folks coming soon. I know we've the MagicJank team has been growing rapidly, which is awesome to see. And I don't know how many people we can get together. I wonder if we can do like a 4 or 5 person episode. Ham, you're gonna be like, no, please, no, God,
hey,
I can't. My overlays.
I don't mind. Honestly,
can you make
even
it work?
I don't see why not. It might the screen for the video might get a little crammed, but we'll make it work. Yeah. And if I have to take the producer role and just kind of keep my mouth shut and let you guys go, that's fine too. I think that could be a blast. But I'm
looking forward to it. But
so Team MagicJank has brought on a couple of new folks. I know a couple months back we brought on Astral's Flame, and he's had the privilege of joining on the podcast. We've had the privilege of having him on the podcast. And then we also have recently picked up Jen and Donnie, aka the MTG Filthy Casuals, who do a lot of Commander content and are just freaking delights. And then we also Tron is bad. Ryan Nicholas is also on the team, which an outspoken advocate of mental health and inclusion in the space. So. Yeah,
he's a good dude.
Very cool. So we're growing, and a lot of amazing folks are associated with us, and oh my goodness, it's just a delight to be on such a cool team.
Speaking of growing, we're having our first ever Team MagicJank meet and greet session at MagicCon Vegas in a couple weeks.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, we are.
I'm jealous. I wish I could be
there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's gonna be so much fun. Yeah, so if you're going to be in Vegas, come say hello. Carlo and I have done kind of joint meet and greets, but this time around, we actually did, twist some wrists or twist some elbows, twist some arms. That's the expression. I'm getting my colloquialisms mixed up, but we did ask nicely, and they actually gave a meet and greet slot to the team. So I believe there are going to be 4 of us there. It's you, me, Jaffer, and Headology, right?
Yep.
Remember? Yeah.
Cool.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be so much fun. So yeah, Sundays, come check us out and say hi. I can't wait. It's going to be an absolute blast. Also, if you're in Vegas, just come play games with us. That's what we're there for.
Yeah,
we have so many
MagicCon
cards.
Vegas, it's an insane experience. I mean, I was actually floored when I was there a couple of years ago with you guys. And, you go upstairs and just see the absolute mammoth number of booths with artists and cosplay and and the massive set pieces they did and it's wild. And then there's Elijah Wood DJing and just weird nonsense, crazy stuff happens at Magic Cons. You've got to go and check it out if you're able.
Absolutely.
But you guys are gonna have a blast. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait.
This year it's bigger.
Whoa.
This is probably. The past Vegas, the last Vegas we went to was pretty big. They changed the area where it was, and it was 2 big, huge floors plus the panel rooms and stuff like that. And then this year is going to be larger because of Final Fantasy, and they're going to have some of the Final Fantasy artists who are there. So I can only imagine how long the wait lines are going to be to see some of those artists. And they're supposed to be doing Final Fantasy Con exclusives. So you can bet if the official store was very long lines in the morning, it's going to be twice that size for people willing to wait and stop for the Final Fantasy merch.
I don't want to see what it's worth the next day on eBay or whatever.
Right.
Dear God.
Yeah.
Anyway. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can snag some swag that you can flip or keep if you love it, but I would be see what I could get on eBay. Maybe some of it's going to be worth. The prices. Anyway, let's not talk about prices these days.
Yeah.
It's bad.
But it's going to be what's the experience is going to be priceless. So there's that, right?
Yes. That's fair enough.
All right. So speaking of a priceless experience, that was one of these days my segues won't be super awkward, but No, that's not the case. Anyway, speaking of cool experiences, last weekend was actually a regional championship in Canada out in Montreal, and Damien, you actually were present at this particular
I
event,
I
and
was.
from what I understand, you were on Azorius Control, right? It was a standard event, and
It was
I
standard. I
yes,
was on Azorius, but not really a control deck. I was playing the Omniscience
interesting.
combo deck, but
Oh, okay, okay.
um, yeah, I had top forward an RCQ with some people from my channel. A couple of people came out to Vancouver back in January. We all played together and got top four. It was the first paper tournament I had played in about 5 years. I don't have any cards. I got rid of all my the standard cards I still have are long rotated. The last big event I played was GP Bangkok in 2019. So since then, I moved back to Canada, sold my collection, everything else. Anyway, long story short, these guys came over, brought me a deck. We qualified. So I had to reciprocate a few months later in May. So last weekend there was a tournament in Montreal, the last regional championship of this cycle, I think. Now we're on to Modern for the next RCQ season. But so it was interesting because it was the last RC. We had seen, multiple American RCs. We had seen South America and China and, Southeast Asia and stuff. And a lot of data from Standard, really interesting stuff. I know a lot of people were freaking out about Corey Steel Cutter right toward the end there. Oh my God, it's 30% of GP RC Hartford or whatever it was, and I'm like, yes, it's a very good card. Like it's obviously we can see how powerful it is, but is it a tier 0 deck that's like Hogak level Eldrazi Winter? Like that's what people were kind of comparing it to, and it's like, okay, no, let's just simmer down. Sure enough, going into RC Montreal, most of the win rates were around 50%. There's a bunch of tier 1 decks in Standard. Almost all of them are 50% win rate across the board. Nobody's like 60%, or we're seeing a lot of blue red Corey Steel in the metagame. Like it's still 29-30%. At the GP that I played in last week, it was 27% or whatever, the most played deck. I played against it 5 rounds in day 1. And but I played Omniscience, which back months ago when I first started playing that deck, it was kind of a niche little combo deck, still inconsistent. But every single set that came out in the last few months just gave it amazing tools. It picked up Stock Up in Aether Drift, which was incredible. And then, of course, Tarkir comes out, and we get Roiling Dragonstorm and the Marang River Regent, which kind of became the engine of the deck and just made it so much more consistent. Just a great plan B, so it's interesting. I played Omniscience combo. It was the second most played deck the third most played deck at RC Montreal. Mono Red came out of nowhere. Second most played deck, highest win rate, 55% overall in the tournament. So really good choice there. Mono Red kind of falling a little bit by the wayside in the last few RCs. So I guess somebody kind of went, hey, like nobody's packing enough hate for this or what have it, what have you. We're gonna jam it. It was sweet to see. And as far as my tournament goes, I'll try and keep it brief here, but basically, yeah, I played against Is It 5 times. I beat them 4 out of 5 times. All the lists were different. This is an open deck list tournament, right? So I'm able to look at my opponent's deck list. They range from 4 Slick Shot in the main to 0 Slick Shot in the main to 4 Dragon Hatcher. What was it called? Drake Hatcher. Drake Hatcher.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot more play because, of course, the mirror. So you see these blue-red decks start to get inbred to beat the mirror, and they're playing cards that are actually worse against us. So Omniscience, I would much rather play against Drake Hatcher than Slick Shot Show Off any day of the week. So, some had Spell Pierce in the main, some didn't. Anyway, great games. Round 2, I lost. I took an L to a rogue deck. This guy showed up. Everybody was great, by the way. Before I talk about my opponents specifically or anything, everybody was super nice, super professional, and everything else. Didn't have any negative interactions. I was giving out tokens all day. Lots of people were interested and, this kind of stuff. Anyway, my second round opponent said he put his deck together the night before, and it was just kind of a deck that he thought was good. And I'm just like, okay. And it was a rogue deck that I had like 4 main deck Aven Mind Sensor. It had 2 Kutzil's Flanker in the main with 2 more in the board. And I'm just like, this is a nightmare. A bunch of counter magic. I still got him 1 game, but he ended up beating me in 3, which is too bad. I'm just like, okay, no more rogue decks, please. And then sure enough, is it mono black? Is it like I'm at 4-1, and I play against this other dude who was, I guess, doing very well. He was 4-1 as well. He is playing Teamer Battle Crier.
Yes.
Have you seen the Teamer Battle Crier deck?
It's growing in popularity.
Dude, It's so magical Christmas land. I loved it. It kicked the crap out of me. But both games, the guy had the nut draw. He goes turn one Land War Elf, turn two plot the Outcaster Trailblazer, I believe he's called. He's a green 3-drop 4/2 that ETBs makes a mana of any color and then draws you a card for every creature with power 4 or greater that enters. So he plots this on turn 2, and then on turn 3, he goes free Outcaster Trailblazer, make a mana, play Teamer Battlecrier. So now Teamer Battlecrier makes everything cheaper by 1 if it costs 4 or more. No, if it has power 4 or greater. Is that right? Yeah.
Which creature you
so
have,
all the Outcasters are free. He starts putting more Outcasters on the battlefield. Everyone is generating a mana. So that each Outcaster now costs 1 mana, generates a mana. So he's drawing cards every time another one comes into play. He plays Roaming Throne for 0 because it's an artifact. And names human. So now he's got the he's got the
infinite mana now off of
Panharmonicon. Infinite mana. Panharmonicon effect basically doubles the mana, doubles the card draw. He plays the Cactus Shot 4-drop that gives everybody haste. He does 16 damage to me on turn 3, draws like 8 cards, has to discard at the end of turn 3, and he passes to me. He's on the play, so it's temporary lockdown doesn't do anything against this. That's my main weapon to fight, these guys. Okay, let's go to game 2. So game 2, exact same start. Turn 1 Llanowar Elf, plot caster on turn 2, the nut draw, both games. Game 2, he didn't go off until turn 4 because I had some interaction. I had a Far's Dispersal, I think. Anyway, turn 4, he played the Dragonhawk creature. It's like a 5 mana from Bloomborough, mythic that has a giant wall of text off it. Yeah. He exiles 9 cards and does 18 damage to me without even attacking. This is in turn 4. And my buddy's behind me watching. He's like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, well, yeah, I rogue decks, man. I had no. He not only did I have barely any sideboard for this. He drew the absolute nuts both games. And he even said he's like that hasn't happened yet today. And I'm like, well, that's
that's what you want to happen every game, though.
That was not. Anyway, these two opponents we end up checking later. They both sadly crashed and burned. I was their only win, and then they lost, and they dropped. Anyway, my tournament kept going. I ended up I needed to win, so I was 5-2. I needed to win 2 out of my last 3 rounds, and I won, and then I lost, and it came down to the last round against Mono Red. The interesting loss there, I was playing against another Izzet deck. This was the 5th time, the last time I played against it, and this list had 19 lands, and it was playing 4 Mockingbird in the main deck, which was really interesting. A really super low to the ground, super cheap version. So again, as an aside, this is why Standard is awesome right now. People look and go, oh my god, Izzet's 30% of the metagame. But when you actually look at these decks, there's 5 different Izzet decks. I played against almost not totally different lists, but very different. Some had 19 land. The other ones had 22. These are very different lists. And it was really interesting. Anyway, super low to the ground version got me. And then the last round was against Mono Red. I win game 1. He wins game 2. Game 3, it comes down to his top deck. I have the combo next turn, and he top decks, I think it was Monstrous Rage to kill me. And that was my tournament. So I didn't make it to day 2. I finished at 5-4. Sad times, but it was a lot of rust. I was trying to get off there, and I got to play against the semi-pro in round 6. No, I was 5-2. It must have been round 7. We were both 5-2, and he was good, man. And it just it brought me back to just playing. It's really good. Those are the kind of players you don't run into at FNMs. You only see at regional championships and stuff. And other people knew him, and the people I know are like, yeah, he's played in the last 6 pro tours or whatever. And we just had an insane match. It was awesome. And I you forget when you play against really high caliber players. This is the first time I played an RC since they existed. GPs were like this back in the day when you'd get to second day or later in day 1 if you had a good record, and you start running into really good players, and it just I feel like it elevates you in a way. You play better because now I'm like, God, this guy is not going to make any mistakes. I've got to really and I'm watching him like a hawk, and I'm trying to not miss anything. And we both just had and it made the whole match so awesome. And it's what I love about competitive Magic. And I know not everybody's competitive, but I really feel like you play against these other players, and it really shows you how deep this game is and how insane some people get at this game. There are people who are so good. Anyway, so great experience. The other people on my team, it was just the two guys that I knew there. Neither of them made day two. One of the people on their larger team, they all play at a local shop there. He did make the top 16, I think. And then there's this, yeah, this one guy. He's kind of the fire shoes of Quebec, the east coast of Canada, in terms of tournament organization. He has a website in French. I guess it's in French and English, and all the players there can go and look at all the local tournaments, what's coming, what's happening, what the prizes are, like all he aggregates everything. So he's really well known, but he's very much like a pretty casual player. He just was like, I'm gonna bring mono red. He top eighted. He got top eight at the RC, and people watching, like it was kind of embarrassing because my buddy was laughing. He's saying, "Yeah, some of the guys next to me were watching him play and go, what? He just missed lethal. Like, oh my, what? He just did that. Like, this guy's making so many mistakes. Apparently, he made a bunch of errors in the top eight. But hey, he was over the moon that he made top eight. Like, he had no intention of even, So
That
really good
rules.
times. Great tournament. Yeah, not much else to say. The whole thing, ironically, was won by Omniscience Combo, the same deck I was playing, took it all down. But when I saw the list, I was like, wow. And again, this is just a perfect example of how diverse Standard really is when you actually look at the lists. This Omniscience, he had main deck Kutzil's Flanker. I played Scroll Shift, and that was my like last minute kind of like, ooh, I'm gonna make it spicy. So far, nobody had really been playing it. One of the decks that top 32, I think in 25th place at the RC Hartford was playing one Scroll Shift, and I was like, Scroll Shift. I'm like, it's too cute. Probably let's try it. Tested it a few days right before I left. I was like, this is actually really, really insane. You can just blow people out. Blinking temp locks, blinking stuff, like blinking your Marang region or your Roiling Dragonstorm to keep drawing. Like a lot of, it does a lot of good work. The deck that takes it down has 2 Scroll Shift in it, and he's looping Kutzil's Flanker to gain infinite life with Marang Regent. Like, you can start doing really... Kutzil's Flanker can actually do infinite damage because you just loop a bunch of times, and Kutzil's Flanker comes down, and for each thing that's left the battlefield this turn, it gets +2/+0, right? So you can play it later and have it be massive and, like, crush. And anyway, just gaining infinite life. He was doing crazy stuff. It was really interesting. And, he's playing the 23 land version. I've seen 23 and 24 land version. Like, there's all these differences even within each archetype. It's really fascinating. So that was the tournament. It was very interesting. I think Standard's still great, but I know most of the community has now moved on to Modern, and that's the next RC season. But anyway, so I don't know. I don't know if you guys watch coverage. I think there was some coverage of it, but
I was watching. I was in their chat saying when you were like
Nice.
the first couple rounds of your matches, I was like, can we get Damien F16 like popular streamer? Please put him on the coverage.
Popular.
I did.
Thank you.
I put it in the chat,
Carlo.
and I was
appreciate
chatting
it.
with. I was atting Samsoni because Samsoni was helping run coverage, and I was like, "Find Damien. Damien is at this event. Get them on
He's
camera."
wearing a
please."
rainbow jersey. I'm hard to miss. I was the only dude with like the loudest jersey in the room. It was fun.
And so I was watching the coverage, and I saw that Sifsock was playing. Sifsock's American and likes to travel to as many events as possible. They're an amazing player.
They are awesome.
And they got second place. So went and LCQ'd at Montreal, LCQ'd into the RC to second place, which is like
and people were not happy.
Story.
Canadian players were like, dude, know your lane. What are you doing up here? Like, you already do well enough down there. Don't come up here and steal one of our slots.
I mean, if you want to keep playing to win, like, and the goal is to get to Worlds, right? Did the top 2 from Canadian RC got to Worlds, so it'll be nice to see them play at that level again. And they're an amazing player. I always get to watch like the collab content that they make together with Scuffle Deluxe. I don't know if you're familiar with Scuffle.
Oh, I didn't know they made content together.
Yeah, cool. Occasionally I get to see them do some things, and it's pretty great. And so you were talking about like all the deck lists not being the same. So I got to play in RC Hartford. So we talked about this a little bit last week. Because I LCQ'd into Hartford. And
I didn't.
I wasn't pre-qualified. Like, went there. I was like, here's my intention. I'm gonna go to play the standard 5K Open on Saturday, maybe the 10K on Sunday. So I was just gonna join the LCQs just for like practice or whatever, and prize tickets. Seeing if I can get another one of these big cards that I have here.
Hell yeah.
And I end up going undefeated in the first LCQ. And so into Hartford I go, and anybody's like, and I go to meet to get my badge and whatever, and they're like, well, you have 6 p.m. till 6 p.m. to submit your list. I was like, just submit the same list. I said, because there's no way I do better than this. There's no way I alter
Yeah.
this deck after going
Yeah.
undefeated in this event.
May I interrupt? What did
You
you
may.
play?
Oh, is it prowess? Because Corey Steelcutter is a busted card.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
What was
and
the like? But what does that tell? Like Drake Hatcher? No Drake Hatcher? Like what are we
Drake
talking here?
Hatcher. So I was playing, in terms of my creature suite, I was playing 4 Swift Spear, 2 Slick Shot
Okay.
Show Off, and 2 Drake Hatcher.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
if I had to do it all over again at that moment in time, I would have played Swift Spear and Drake Hatchers only, and no Slick
Yeah.
Shot Show Offs. I think Slick
That's what I
Shot Show
saw
Off
a
is
lot
the
of.
worst creature in the deck, out of the ones that you can play. Though
Yeah.
I did see people who were cutting Swift Spears out of the deck, and instead they were
Whoa.
playing like Thunder Trap Trainer.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
I get to each their own. I mean, like you said, there are a
Yeah.
bunch of different lists that are out there. I am seeing Thunder Trap Trainer become more popular. For me, I
Mhm.
want to end the game faster, and
You
so
should check out
playing cards
Mockingbird.
like Thunder Trap Trainer don't really do that.
I
But I
agree.
understand. I understand wanting people. Some folks want to play a longer game. If you want to play a longer game, Thunder Trap Trainer helps you get you into those couple spells maybe that you need in your hand.
Yep.
Totally fine. And yeah, there's so many different events, and it was we've played open deck lists events before, like especially when we used to do the pizza box tournaments all the time. They were always open deck lists on Melee, so you could always see what your opponent was playing. And this was like my first paper experience doing that, and so because of that, you see a bunch of people playing like random one ofs in their deck. We kind of like talk about this all the
Yeah.
time, right? If you take a
Mhm.
look at a lot of like Japanese tournaments
Yeah.
or tournaments that happen over there. Those tournaments are known for players playing like one of this or two of this as like their signature to the deck, right?
Yeah.
And I see that so much happening in a regional championship open deck list tournaments because the deck you're going to play against, and now your opponent who's seen this random one of in your deck list now has to be worried about it. So their
Yep.
focus like goes on, okay, are they going to draw this random one of, or what's going on here? Like your stock lists become important, but there's always sort of like that surprise element.
Yep.
Personally, I would prefer if we didn't do open deck list tournaments. It doesn't make much sense to me. It actually makes rogue decks, in my opinion, worse to want to play
Mhm.
because
Significantly.
the point of playing a rogue deck is to hit your opponent surprise. They don't know what's in your deck. And now all of a sudden, at the start of game one, I can see that you're on a rogue deck and say, okay, my starting hand has to have this, and it destroys your deck. So I think that brings like a less fun element to rogue deck players. Now,
Yep.
that being said, at your RC in Montreal, you actually had a player that I see on the arena ladder quite frequently. Um, I think their arena name is Nithin, and they are always playing. I think their name's actually Nithin IRL, but their arena name is Ithin, and they're always playing the Is It Dragon Casino deck. That's the deck with the Capricious Hellraiser
Oh
Brass's Tunnel
yes.
Grinder
Oh my
combo.
I
goodness.
saw him play. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They
I
are
know who
the
you're talking
only
about.
player I ever see playing that on the Mythic ladder. They hit Mythic every season. They have thousands of games in with the deck. That's their deck. They know how to play that.
Sure.
If you or I try to pick up that deck right away, we don't know the play patterns.
Yeah.
That's the perfect example of, hey, I play this deck all the time. I know the play patterns. I'm comfortable taking
Yep.
this to an event, no matter what the metagame is. Like, I'm just going to go with the flow. Downside
Yep.
is opponent sees this game one and they're like, okay, so I just need to be able to interact with your graveyard. Let me see what the best way possible to do that is in game one, and then game two, I already know what I need to sideboard, and you know.
Right.
So I think when I was
Yeah.
watching them, they were like 4-1 in the tournament. I'm like, please let this person win this tournament. Like, good luck everybody else. But I just want
Yeah.
this. Like, this is the deck I am rooting for to win this whole thing. Um,
Yeah, I've played against it. It's pretty silly.
Yeah,
I could
but
use a week of like a 50% ladder share of Capricious Hellraiser. I think that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's
I would love
great.
that to be a flavor of the week. Yeah.
When you called it a slot machine or a casino deck, yeah, like it really,
Mhm.
like it's literally choosing random cards from your graveyard. You've got to
Yes.
either do a bunch of work to sculpt your graveyard, or you're just
Yep.
hoping to hit well. It's a wild one.
It actually,
But
so funny enough, in the last RC qualifying season, so in the RCQ season, A couple of my friends, we would go to RC2s together. We bring the deck that we were playing, and somebody always brought the Dragon Casino deck, like the full 75. Who wants to audible to this before the tournament? And we always got like somebody in the group that would just audible and just like take the deck. It's like, okay, I'm gonna Dragon Casino today. If anything else, I either have fun, I win the event, or I go have lunch early. One of those three things are happening in that RCQ.
Yep.
But that being said, it is a very fun deck to play. But yeah, like you have to have the play patterns down. You got to know what you're doing. And so that's just one of the reasons I really don't like open deck list tournaments. For the Spotlight series that's happening right now. So as of recording, this is day 2 of the Spotlight series, which is modern. Day 1 is not open deck list, but day 2 is. Why? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
right?
strange.
I would want my day 1 of an open series like that to not be open deck list because I want to take a rogue modern deck to play. Now I'm at a disadvantage in day 2. It just doesn't make sense why we do this.
That's true, and I take your point. I think I side with you as well there. I think it does make less sense, but there is like an argument to be made for integrity, for example. Like I know that in RC Hartford, I think it was Jarvis Yu was talking about this on the Dominaria podcast or some podcast, and he was saying, I'm looking at my opponent's deck list and I see a dual land that I'm pretty sure that deck doesn't play. And so I asked the judge, and sure enough, the player was like, oh crap, yeah, wait, no, I wrote it wrong or whatever. Like there is that aspect of like if they are playing a deck that's not actually like they're trying to sneak something in or they're trying not to. But that's such a minor thing. I think the drawback outweighs that. Like I still agree with you, but I'm saying like I can think of reasons why you might want to have like an open deck list tournament, especially like day 2 or like at the higher levels, so that there's no like for integrity purposes. But I think you're right about the rogue deck thing. It's funny though, like when I saw that Teamer Battle Crier list, I'm just like, okay, I had to pick up my phone. I'm like, I have to look some of these up. He's like, do you want me to show you the cards? I'm like, sure. And he's just like, okay, this is what this card does. He's like showing me all these. Like I had to read the Dragon Hawk and you know what I mean. So sometimes you're right. Like you're right. Other times you look at a rogue deck list and I go, I can't do anything about this, even though I know all these cards.
But in the same regards, right? Like somebody's looking at your deck list. This happened to me a couple times because the list I was playing one Rebel Salvo in the sideboard of my prowess deck. I love it, right? There was lots of different play patterns went together with that card. And every time somebody looked at my deck list, they asked me what the card did. And so I would start to explain what the card did. And then the players next to us would say, you should really call a judge and ask for that. Well, now we are wasting all of this time because all that player is going to do is call for the judge to ask for the oracle text on the card. Here, I'll just show you on my sideboard. You already see what's in my deck, right? But some players would just immediately put up the hand and call the judge. And now there's got to be a time extension because this person needs to read what the card does because they have no idea. And the only reason that they have to do that is because they looked at your deck list ahead of time. Which is like...
Right.
You already think that the games go over time by a lot, right? You're talking like 20 plus minutes in between rounds during the first at least half of the tournament. It just doesn't make sense to me. I want to be able to take something fun. I feel like that it disincentivizes folks to take funner decks to tournaments if my opponent knows what all of my cards are and do ahead of time. Like there's something to being said for prepping for an event. And playing against the metagame is way different than me trying to bring sort of like an anti-metagame deck to this bigger event. Because now I'm immediately less prepared. I'm already disadvantaged because my deck isn't top tier. And now I'm more disadvantaged because now my opponents know what my cards do. Right? So it's just for that reason that I don't think open deck list should be a thing. Now, is it more convenient for folks who are watching coverage of an event? Because I could tell you, watching the Modern tournament yesterday, the Twitch chat was just flooded. Deck list. And they said, well, deck lists aren't open for day 1. So you can't see the deck list. They don't get published till tomorrow, right? And so just for the convenience of players wanting to see, okay, wow, this deck was good. Can I see the full list? Obviously, they can't make that available because then I could go online and see what my opponent's deck lists are, right?
Right.
For convenience sake, I would wish that they just wait until the end of an event to do that. Just for, more innovations in formats. Maybe you would see less, I mean, it's clear in Standard that Corey Steelcutter decks, they are the most submitted deck because the deck is so good. And I use the term submitted versus like played deck because, um, 30%, 35% of people might submit this deck because they believe it's the best. And just by math, if half of those players do well, you're going to see still a high percentage of a conversion rate just off the basis of the amount of submissions of that deck, right? I think it was at Hartford, it was like 33 or 35% of the submitted decks for the day. And I don't know the conversion rate right offhand, but it was still fairly high. And people were like, well, we should ban Corey's Steelcutter or ban one of these other cards in this deck because it's so strong. And if you take a look at all of the other decks, I mean, there's still like 5 other playable decks at tier 1 kind of in standard. And you're talking about 2 RCs to determine that this amount of submitted decks should result in a deck being, or a card in a deck being banned. Doesn't make sense to me either. And not that I want to like shift this to a should a card be banned in standard discussion, because we should probably talk about that this month, because June 30th is the next scheduled ban announcement, and will be the only one pre-rotation. But just to bring it back to that argument, though, they did say, we're talking about the WotC stream where they addressed why there were no changes in standard last time. They said the reason for that is because they believe that standard number 1 was flourishing. Quotation marks, their quote, not mine. They said that if you think a card might get banned in a format in standard, you should look to see if it's banned in another format, and that should indicate whether or not action would be taken. And I have a problem with that, because if that's their philosophy, then 2 cards already would have been banned. That's Up the Beanstalk and Monstrous Rage. Right. I'm not calling for them to be banned, but Beanstalk has been banned in Modern now for a while because they determined that that card was too strong for that format. We're talking about a format that still had to wait to get Nadu and Underworld Breach banned from it, and Beans was banned before that, right? And that card got banned because it was too quote-unquote strong with free elemental spells that they printed into the format in the Omnath deck, which doesn't really exist anymore in the format, right? And it's not because of Beans. It's just because other decks are better,
Yeah, and it's the free elementals. They were 2 of them are banned right now. Like they were way too busted. When Beans was banned, they were all legal, and it was and Yorion was legal. Yorion's another card that got banned out of that deck. So Up the Beanstalk being banned in Modern, I still don't think makes any, like, these are 2 apples and oranges. They're 2 totally separate things. Just because Modern's a more powerful format and a card is banned there doesn't mean it's too powerful for Standard. The tools surrounding it are totally different. I don't know. It's a ridiculous thing to base it on, like you said. I don't know what they're thinking by saying that. It's
right. And we've seen that. Yeah, numerous times. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
And the other card being Monstrous Rage, and the only thing that you can equate that to, and granted, hey, if you don't play Alchemy, this doesn't really apply to you. But in the Alchemy format in Arena, this card was banned, right? Because Alchemy in Arena already has made-up cards that don't exist in Paper Magic that they can change at a whim, right? But it also is a 2-year standard rotation as opposed to 3. So they determined that Monstrous Rage was too strong in a 2-year format in which Wilds of Eldraine was the oldest set in standard already. They said it was too strong for that with the made-up cards, right?
Yeah, and some of those made-up cards are insane. It's like crazy push. So
but I mean, they also have the data is so skewed for that. There's no tournaments. There's no shot. There's nothing. There's no competitive play for Alchemy. It's just I don't know what data they get from the API they have, like the ladder data from people randomly playing. But what does that really tell you? Like, there's no money tournaments. People aren't trying to break the format in the way that they do with actual Pro Tour formats. So. Yeah, it's silly. We'll definitely have to talk about bannings. Sorry, Ham, go ahead.
No, and I definitely do want to talk bannings. The one thing that I saw about Monstrous Rage is that it is seeing like a number of different decks are using it to the point where I don't remember if it was this past weekend's tournament or the one before, where like 60% of the day 2 decks were Monstrous Rage builds of some kind. Like, that's That's a stat that is, that one turns
Yeah,
my head a little bit. Like, okay,
that's fair.
that's an indicator that there might be something to miss there.
And the mono red decks, the ones that are doing well, are playing Magebane Lizard to try to counteract the Corey Steelcutter multiple spell thing. And
Ooh.
you Monstrous Rage on a Magebane Lizard, that's a big lizard, right? You're talking about something that's a 1/4 that relatively doesn't do any damage. You don't care to take a damage off of you casting Monstrous Rage on it.
Oh yeah, whatever.
Because now your Magebane Lizard is essentially a 4/5 that's
Yeah.
attacking off Monstrous Rage. Whatever your opponent's blocking with is dead, plus you're taking trample damage, and then the lizard is buffed to a 2/5 forever, puts it out of
Right.
cut down range, out of a bunch of other ranges. It's like,
Well, but again, I just always come back to the win rates, the day two conversion, the number of cards that are seeing played, like the same copy of the card. All of these things are pieces of the pie, but I think the biggest piece and the one that's the most important is the win rates of these decks. If Corey steals 29-30% of the metagame, or if there's 60% of the decks in day two are playing Monstrous Rage, but all of them only have a 52% win rate overall. Azorius Omniscience or like Blue White Control with Blue White Control got second place in that RC
Hartford.
Hartford in the hands of a very good player, Chris Botello, who, like you said before, with the combo guy, like Chris is the same. He's been playing Blue Eye Control forever, even when everybody else is like, you can't play. You're playing Blue Eye Control in a field of Monstrous Rage? Yeah, and winning with it. So
yes.
again, we get back to this point. Is it bannable? To me, a card is bannable because not only is it seeing a lot of play, there's no effective way to answer it. That's always been the case when they ban stuff. There's no clean way to deal with this that doesn't put us way behind. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. The elementals and stuff in Modern. They're just too, you can't fight them on the axis they're attacking you on. You just can't deal with them effectively. You're always down a card. You're always, Monstrous Rage is a combat trick. I mean, we have removal in standard, we have temporary lockdown. This is a beatable card. It's not the same as Nadu or or Underworld Breach. Like those are truly ridiculous, right? To me, it would be crazy to ban a combat trick like this, but is it ubiquitous? Yes. Is it good? Yes. We all know.
Yeah.
But the decks that are playing four of them are not rocking 60% win rates. Like they're still just as good as all the Dimir midrange puts up the same win rate as the Monstrous Rage decks. Same with Omniscience. Same with, Domain's still out there. I don't know what it's doing, but Black White Pixie, there's a bunch of decks that don't play this that are still doing fine. There's like 5 decks in standard with a almost like within a few percentage points win rate. So it's an interesting discussion. I think it sucks to lose to it, and that's part of it. It's like, oh, you just feel like, God, they had another. Of course, they have Monstrous Rage. No, and you lose, and it feels bad. But
there's
should it be banned?
only
I don't know.
one piece of pushback that I would give there. And again, I'm not advocating for cards to be banned.
Yeah.
Monstrous Rage is just egregious of a card. And the reason it's egregious is because it disincentivizes blocking. It makes you, if you're the mid-range player or you're playing a different type of aggro deck, like let's say you try, for a while, there was like a blue-white aggro deck that was in standard. You remember? It was kind of like Convoke, but not. It played like Warden of the whatever sky from Ixalan, and it played Spyglass Sirens, and it was more of like a tempo-ish deck, right? Regal Boonicorn, Enduring Curiosity. That deck can't exist in standard anymore. And I'm not saying it's because of Monstrous Rage. It's that you can never have a good block against a deck that plays Monstrous Rage. And when your other cards in the deck, like Rockface Village, target like your Emberheart Challenger that lets you flip this card off the top, so it's couldn't even prepare for it, right? It makes me, let's say I'm the Golgari player, and not saying that Golgari is a top tier deck or anything like that, because it's definitely not anymore.
Yeah,
I can't even block with my damn my Sentinel, right? My 3/4 can never have a good block against a card like this. Now, the argument is that I should be able to have removal, right? My Golgari deck plays some amount of cut down, which doesn't matter against Monstrous Rage. Anoint with Affliction, go for the throat, and you just wait for them to cast the spell. But because the deck is like so fast, and you don't want to make a block that might be good, and you're like, well, there's no way they have Monstrous Rage here. They always have Monstrous Rage. It just makes blocking not a good thing to do anymore in this game. And for that reason, I think that this card doesn't necessarily need to be in the format. Guess, again, I'm not advocating for banning the card, but if there was one that I had to hit that was leaning towards that way, it still very much is that card, but only for that reason. That and because it disincentivizes blocking, it's preventing other brews from sort of like rising in standard.
Yeah.
There's less creativity that's able to be had.
Yeah, well, because blocking isn't a good answer against the aggro decks, and because blocking is no longer a good value, everybody is bringing 1-drop removal spells. Like they're everywhere. Like you have to be running a significant number of removal spells. So if you're trying to brew something that requires a creature to survive, and that's been the case in standard for a long time. It's been a hostile place for that, and I think Monstrous Rage is a factor in that discussion.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
I guess it's like whenever there's a powerful card or a very powerful strategy, it will keep other decks out of the format. When Domain was 20% of the metagame 2 years ago, I don't know. You couldn't play Control. You couldn't play certain archetypes because they went way over the top of you, and you're never beating that, And it was so.
That's
when you are right.
That's when they should have hit Beans.
You think they should have banned it?
Yes.
But then now look though. But do you see any Beans anywhere now? Like, it would have been silly to ban it. Now here we are.
But now the entire format is our decks that get under Beans, like because you have to.
Right.
Like, and so we have a lot of tools to do that. But if they were to ban Monstrous Rage, we would go back to Beanstalk being a top tier deck. I'm sure of it. Yeah. Like that's my read on it anyway. Like the stock on that card would increase dramatically. I feel like both of these cards are like, we use the expression or the word broken gets thrown around a lot, and it's become kind of synonymous with just good. Frankly, we overuse that phrase like a lot. But I feel like Monstrous Rage and Up the Beanstalk are both like Up the Beanstalk is truly broken. Like it generates more than 2 mana worth of value consistently in any deck that can leverage it, and its interaction with cost reduction, it's just a fundamentally broken card. I don't believe its application is what was intended when it was designed. I wasn't in the room, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was meant to be like a draft filler in the Simic decks in Wild of Eldraine, and instead it's banned in Modern because it's nuts. So at the end of the day, like, you're right that like right now Beans isn't a top tier. So right now a ban on Up the Beanstalk would not necessarily be appropriate. It wouldn't really make sense because you're trying to solve a problem that we don't have.
It wouldn't make But I'm saying if you had banned it a year ago or 2 years ago,
then it would have probably made sense.
To have it on the banned list right now, like it would be.
No,
dumb,
and
right?
in fact, I think they should be more flexible with it. It's a different story when you were like banning rares and mythics versus banning uncommons from your format, right? I feel less bad if they would have like banned Beans 2 years ago and then thought to bring it back because it's an uncommon.
Well, because of the value, right.
It'd be a different story if the card was like some $30 mythic, and because of it, its power level, and people would lose. I hate when people like lose agency in terms of value in this game.
Yeah, that's the thing you're doing though, is setting the precedent. So even if you do it with an uncommon, what's to stop you doing it from a rare next time with a rare next time? I think that's the issue, right? They would have to say, we're never doing this with rares. If we ban a rare, it's always going to stay banned. But uncommons, we can go back and forth every year. Like they could make a statement like that, but that would be almost acknowledging.
But we're also talking about them moving from having a 2-year standard to an extended 3-year standard, right? Where they had to change their designs for sets to interact with the older cards. And the first set that they did that with was Karlov Manor, right? You see that in them printing like Scorching Shot into that set because remember when Shieldred was a problem in Standard and nobody could kill a silly 4/5? Even though we had Go for the Throat, right? Yeah, people were calling for that card to get banned, and that made up 20-something% of the metagame. And that's before like Dimir Bounce. You're talking about like mono black. Like, hello? Remember when they got rid of Invoke Despair, right?
It was Rafine. It was Soul Shoulder was busted because Rafine was the best deck in the format. So it was good against Rafine. It was good in the Rafine decks. But that's the kind of natural, okay, as soon as rotation happens, Shouldered, just like Monstrous Rage is great right now. Well, then the next set comes out and we get an insane sweeper or some crazy creature that ETBs and blows up an artifact, and suddenly Corey Steele's back down to being 15% of the metagame. The way Domain is now. I think the best way to handle a deck suddenly rising and being really good, or 60% of the decks being Monstrous Rage decks in game 2 or day 2, is to just let the format hopefully heal itself, like churn, whether it's rotation or new sets coming out. People are freaked out right now by temporary lockdown rotating. It's going to rotate in 3 months, right? 2 months, 3 months at the beginning of August.
August.
That's a big one. Right now, temporary lockdown is one of the linchpin cards of the format. It's seeing play in any deck that wants to stay alive against all the aggro decks. You got to just be playing either temp blocks or split up, like I see blue-white control, and there's decks that'll play sometimes either or Jeskai control. They'll play temporary lockdown or split up. One of those 3-mana sweepers. With temporary lockdown leaving is a big one, but maybe Edge of Eternities brings a good replacement. Maybe there's something else that's even better than this that gets printed. Like, let's not, freak out and start banning stuff, because the natural churn of the format might actually heal the problems that we're having, I don't know. But
there's also a precedent for Wizards literally just reprinting a card that's about to leave. I mean, we see that with like Abrade and Opt and some of these like negate these little role players that like just never rotate. And like, who knows? Maybe they've kind of seen this meta game shift coming, and maybe they do have like a plan to get temporary lockdown just straight up, just reprint into Edge of Eternity. I don't know, but like, you never know, right? Like, crazier things have happened.
You never know.
So
exactly. So the sky is falling thing. Let's just let's all just relax.
And that brings me to another question that I just want to ask, because one thing that I can't help but notice, being here as part of this discussion and, streaming Magic and being so invested in the conversations, I've noticed that there have always been, for as long as I've been paying attention. I mean, I started playing this game 20 years ago, and like some of my friends were saying, the cards needed to get banned back then. We're not even thinking about going to tournaments, and people are having that conversation. It's like, come on, guys, chill out. But so there's always going to be somebody calling for a ban. Always. That's just inevitable. Right. It is what it is. But I've noticed there doesn't seem to be as much discussion around answers. Do Magic players not realize how much agency they have in these kinds of moments? Like,
nobody wants to propose solutions. Just like, here's the problem.
So Monstrous Rage is a nuts busted card. Sure, okay. So build your deck with the understanding that you're going to see it. Have a plan to deal with Monstrous Rage. And are there a ton of options? I mean, maybe not as many as we would like, but there are options, and there are interactions, and there are ways around it. Like, that's why
the big red line is where, like, what you're saying is absolutely true. I think the big red line is when people do prepare for it, and they still can't beat it.
And they still get blown out.
Underworld Breach, like Nadu, Hogak, and people are putting main deck Leyline of the Void and still losing to Hogak. We have a problem, right?
Crazy, sure.
But that is not Monstrous Rage, and that is not even up to Beanstalk. That was not the case. Like, is it really good? Yes. Is it too good? Yes, probably. But is it like so format warping that we can't deal with it? No. It's just people just want a nice, easy, get it out of here, and then I can play the thing I like to play. Because this happens to line up really good against me, and I'm getting my ass kicked. So that's what I feel a lot of it is, too. It's like, I don't personally like playing against that particular strategy or card. Get it out of my format. And it's like, that is not ever, you can't approach it that way. I'm sorry, you're being very subjective.
And a lot of that reason is, we've talked, well, at least I have talked about it a couple times. Because we get to play Magic on Arena, Magic Online, whatever, you play a lot of online digital Magic. You're playing more of it. Whereas, back in the day when we didn't have Arena, we did have Magic Online, but we didn't have Arena where people are playing, substantially more games there. Standard and Modern, they were always rock, paper, scissors formats. There were only ever 3 Tier 1 decks. And when the SCG Tour had, 2 to 3 tournaments a month traveling to different cities, and there were, PPTQs plus Star City Games IQs in stores, which helped qualify you for their tournament series. People forget that Standard evolved a lot quicker then, right? Even though we only have like 2 months in between sets, 6 set releases during the course of a year for Standard. You're talking about a metagame that evolves week to week to week. Back in the day, you could have been playing, I mean, granted, Callblade was like at the top of its game, but like you had Callblade versus Valakut versus another deck, and those were like the rock, paper, scissors. And it was always a different archetype. Was Control good this week? Were more people going to bring Scape Shift combo? More people going to be playing Callblade, right? And then the next week, there might be a rogue deck that breaks out that's good against 2 out of the 3. And then people start playing that deck in waves. You don't have that anymore. We have the arena ladder. We get to see people playing their own brews. I'm the doppelgang guy that you will always encounter. It is what it is. Or you encounter the dragon casino person.
Mm-hmm.
Something is just going to happen. You're going to run into those people playing like their pet decks or what they think's good. But we don't have there's no tournament series now that dictates the evolution of a format.
Yeah,
there's just
I mean,
not.
Magic Online could be the closest thing, the Magic Online challenges, but that's not
Challenges,
even what.
yeah,
It's not the same as what you're talking about. You're right.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But I also feel like Magic Online, a lot of those players are also just playing the same deck. Like you take a look at the people who are top aiding with mono red all the time, they're always on mono red or some type of red variant.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're just good players, right? Who just
and they know their deck. Yeah, they know their archetype. That's all they play, like you said. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and I'm not calling arena players bad. Please don't clip this and send that and say that. Not at all. But like we play different decks all the time. I mean, Damien, probably out of all of us, you play the same deck the most all the time, right?
Leading up to this RC, yeah.
Oh, sure,
yeah.
I'm testing, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. You could have Ham stream up, and Ham's just like jamming like Charix in a random historic build or something out there, or like on doppelgang things that don't need to be doppelganged, and then the very next match playing like I don't know simulacrum synthesizer that doesn't synergize to something else in my deck. Who knows?
I think all three of us are definitely, we try to be well-rounded players. I think that's safe to say, right? We are trying to be, but even then, like just thinking about what each of us do, like I do try to like find weird janky nonsense, but at the end of the day, like a shell that I keep going back to, and I will just always keep going back to it for as long as it's available in standard, is Liliana the Veil, Overlord of the Baelmerk, and Valgavott's Faithful. That is that's not a meta deck at all, and I've built like a dozen different versions of that in different color combinations, and doggone it, it's just fun. Like, and so, and we're in an environment where Rest in Peace and Ghost Vacuum and Cutzel's Flanker, and like graveyards are off limits right now, and I'm still messing around with them because I love them so much.
I was playing graveyard deck, yeah.
They are.
The Omniscience deck is still
the Omniscience deck is absolutely
standard, right?
Yep,
we have
absolutely
best graveyard interaction spells in Magic.
They're so good.
And
well,
find your style, and like we all have the style where we're comfortable. Like I know if I want to find a ramp package with like a crazy huge top end something, Carlo, I'm looking at you, man. Like you're one of the only people I've seen actually make like skeletal swarming and rabble rousing work. Like I don't know how you do it, but you do, because like I know I can trust you on this.
Funny.
And I know when control is not viable, Damien, I know you'll find a way and find a list where you can make it happen. And I don't know, that's awesome.
I think Damien just enjoys playing like 40-minute matches of Magic Arena.
I do, that's the one thing I don't play is mono red. Like I have zero interest. It's boring to me, and it's a subjective thing. And I'm sure when I was playing competitively all the time, I played Affinity. In tournaments I played aggressive decks that I didn't love, that kind of dump your hand and hope it's good enough kind of deck. But I like playing decks with more agency, but that's beside the point. I think what you touched on something with arena players that I find really interesting, that I think a lot of arena players aren't self-aware enough to realize is going on. Even on Magic Online or in real life, the games are much slower. You're getting way less games in per hour than you are on Magic Arena. Magic Arena is very streamlined. It's very fast. I mean, I'm not even talking about best of one here. Like best of 3 matches, you can get in and out of matches much quicker, which means you're seeing a lot more different deck. You're playing a lot more matches, which means you're going to lose to the same things a lot more. And when people lose to like Monstrous Rage on the ladder all the time, like it just feels more oppressive. Or there's another Omniscience God and they comboed me off again. They always have it. It's like they don't, but you're playing so many more matches against these decks that it seems that way. It's a perception.
Yes.
It's your brain tricking you, basically. It's like the reason a lot of them think the shuffler is rigged, because how could I get mana screwed again? Well, you're playing so many more games. The number of games you're going to get mana screwed goes up just by volume, right? Because you're playing more games. Well, but people seem to have trouble grasping this.
We have to explain that every time folks come in the chat, right?
Dude.
It happens all the time. People come in the chat. I'm tired of playing standard because I keep running in the Corey Steel Cutter, or I'm tired of this particular archetype. And I'm a broken record every time. I always have to explain exactly that point. It's like you play more Magic on Arena. Go to your LGS, right? Go play Standard if Standard's firing at your LGS, and you play in a 3 or 4 round event. You're not going to play against Is It Steel Cutter 4 times. If you are, then I would talk with your local player scene over there
Sure.
and say, yo, what are y'all doing? But
if
like,
bring 4 lockdowns in your main and have a
Yes.
great day. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, sorry.
right? Like
It's all-
going to a random RCQ, that's not happening. Like you're gonna
Right.
run in. Yeah, you might go show up to like a 40-person RCQ and 15 players are playing Is It Prowess. Sure, yeah. That's not like out of this world, but the other 35 players are people that you're gonna run into who aren't playing that deck, and that's not the
Yeah.
same as randomly queuing up in a 10 to 20 second queue wait time for Standard on Arena and loading up against everybody who, now that the season reset, is trying to race to Mythic as fast as possible, playing the more aggressive
Right.
decks.
Depends on the time of the
Considerably
month.
more different.
It depends on the time zone you're in. It depends on the physical location you're in, what server you're connecting to in the world.
Yep.
There's so many factors here. So when you're always doing this, you're playing at the same time of the day on this specific day in this specific graphical location. All those things are a factor, and so it might seem like you're seeing the same stuff over and over, or stuff's happening that mathematically shouldn't happen this often, but that's why all those things are affecting this. Anyway, yes, I don't think that'll ever change. I think people struggle with numbers and data and how to decipher them and interpret them and stuff like that, but anyway, maybe we should move on from this. It's an interesting discussion. We got to come back to the bannings at the end of the month or next month or whatever. But.
So just to sort of wrap this part of the discussion up, though. So just like dates to keep on people's radar, right? So right now, you mentioned, Damien, we're in the modern RCQ season. So all RCQs that are happening now are qualifying people for an RC, at least in the US, that will happen either in Houston in October or Vegas in November, which
It's not announced yet?
Yeah, that's been announced. So that's the 2 modern regional championships that'll happen in the fall. Also, interesting point. So I don't know how many folks who are listening who are playing in the RCQ season realize this, but you should, because it's very important. The Vegas RC that's in November is the weekend before Thanksgiving in the US. And not only is that normally is not a problem. What is a problem is that it's the same weekend as the Formula One race in Vegas. Prices are astronomical for flights right now, for
hotels,
any other type of travel accommodations. It's like not the spot that you want to go. I would not be surprised if that RC is very lowly attended because of the amount of money you're gonna have to spend to go there. And I would bet that. I don't know. I would bet that SCG got a pretty cheap price to host a convention that weekend at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Which is also right next to the Sphere, which is going to be packed for the Formula One race. So who knows? But so that means Houston's probably going to be traveled to most, I would imagine, in October. But the reason I mention that is because we were talking about Standard. So where we're going to be in regards to Standard rotation and happenings, right? So Final Fantasy comes out officially. So this week coming up is the streamer event on the 4th. Pre-release weekend is this weekend on Friday and Saturday, the 5th and 6th, and 7th if you play in them on Sundays. And then that following Tuesday is when Final Fantasy is released on Arena to be played. At the end of June, so you're talking 4 weeks later, is when you have a scheduled ban announcement, right? We don't know if something's happening. They said that they were going to take action before rotation. June 30th is the date for that. Edge of Eternities comes out rotation happens August 1st.
Yeah, August 1st.
That should be the release date of Edge of Eternities, right? Standard will rotate. 5 sets go out. Dominaria United, Brothers War, Phyrexia All Will Be One, March of the Machines, and Aftermath. Those 5 sets leave. The oldest set in Standard will be Wilds of Eldraine going forward. Edge of Eternities will be the newest. The RCQ season for Modern ends the weekend of July 20th. So there will be a fresh RCQ season starting in August. That's Standard. And we have 2 back-to-back Standard RCQ seasons, right? So that means we'll have 6 months of Standard. with a Spotlight Series Open happening at the end of August in Orlando. That's an open standard event from SCG. So imagine all of this happening. End of June, ban announcement. Bans might either go into effect immediately or they wait until rotation happens. We don't know what they're going to do yet. But if they ban something on the 30th, pre-rotation, you have a significantly different standard format from when Final Fantasy releases till that ban announcement, and then a separate standard format after the ban announcement until rotation. So I'm hoping if that they're going to take action, that they say, okay, here are what the bans are going to happen. Here's a month's notice. It happens when rotation happens. I hope they don't say the bans take effect immediately, because that would be very weird for us. But it wouldn't impact a standard RCQ season. So I'm curious where they go with that.
Yeah, hopefully they do the smart thing, and hopefully they're transparent and let us know exactly what's going to happen and stuff like that. Because, there's a lot going on. I mean, let's just keep talking about something else.
Sorry. Well,
I don't want to talk about. I was going to say Spider-Man's going to be just a giant gong show.
Oh, that whole thing. Yeah, we'll talk more about that when we get there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't wait to talk about all the Spooder dude spoilers. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Arachno Boy.
Exactly.
on arena. And I don't know what. Yeah. Anyway,
everybody, the most positive, well-meaning, uplifting, 100% bright side folks in this space are all saying, that's a mess. Like, no, there is no good take on that, or no, there's no charitable. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
There's no silver lining. It was clearly that's just a blunder. Period. Like the whole Spider-Man thing. We'll talk more about that another time.
Draft set. Yeah.
But when I have a question about the bans now. I want to move off of it and talk about Final Fantasy spoilers. We should do that, but I am curious. Do you think that they would they ban something out of standard in this time period just to increase or maybe make Arena a more approachable space, since it won't impact an RC season?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're going to do the smart thing, and if they ban something, it'll happen at rotation. But
okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
Curious.
Nobody knows.
If they got rid of Monstrous Rage, would the perception of the ladder be better, and would we see more Arena players? I don't know. I doubt it, honestly. I don't know that change would be meaningful enough to make that. Anyway,
I think Final Fantasy is going to bring in a ginormous amount of new players to Arena, more than any banning or not banning ever would. Yeah, I actually, we're about to go into these spoilers, and maybe before we do, it's interesting looking now that we have the full set. I hear a lot of people saying it's a low-powered set, and I look at it and go, yeah, like it doesn't seem. Again, for Commander and stuff, sure, but for competitive constructed sanctioned Magic, it doesn't look super powerful. And then I think to myself, yeah, that's almost certainly by design to get new players into the game. Like they don't want to have things that are too insane. Like there's some wordy cards, there's flip sagas, and the wordiest set we've had to date is Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It had more words than any other set ever printed. And I think this set might beat it, actually. I'm not sure. It hasn't, I don't know if we have an official number. Somebody count the words. But we'll see.
Let me get right on that.
A lot of people are like,
2.
I think it's almost a little bit like toned down for new players. I think they literally like did it to make. I don't know. Are you guys getting that vibe or not? Maybe I'm just hallucinating here.
I see a couple of very powerful cards in the set, but I can appreciate the idea that a large portion of it, similar to Lord of the Rings, right? People think of Lord of the Rings as a powerful set, but it's like, there was Orcish Bowmasters and there was the One Ring, and then like. Palantir is quite good, and there's a ton of stuff for Commander, but like at the end of the day, that whole set was not really quite, people think of it as like Modern Horizons, 1.5 or whatever, and like, not really. Like there were a couple of cards
not as powerful as
stood out, but and honestly, I kind of feel the same way about Final Fantasy. Like I do genuinely believe there are a couple of cards that are going to have some ripples and see some play. But the vast majority of it outside of standard is probably going to go kind of under the radar, or it'll be kind of a niche. A lot. I mean, in Commander, these are people's favorite characters from their favorite video games. The value on these cards is going to stay very, very high. The reality is,
for sure.
I mean, Cloud Strife could have been a vanilla 1/1 for 3, and that card would be worth something just because it's Cloud on it. Like, so, at the end of the day, these are trading cards associated with a popular franchise. And I think I appreciate that Wizards didn't push all of them to the moon because they don't have to sell
Yeah,
this thing,
I it was one of my big fears for
So,
Universes Beyond sets was they're going to be pushed the way they pushed the One Ring, and
yeah.
it doesn't seem like that's the case. But then again, when I think about it, actually, it makes more sense for them not to push it because again, I think it allows new players to get it's more
Yeah.
accessible for newer
Yeah.
players,
There are a couple of strong ones, I think. But
But
yeah.
yeah, well, let's
Yeah.
maybe talk about them.
Yeah,
So
Oh,
let's
right,
get
you
it.
want to say you were going to say something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean I've quite noticed this that what they've been doing in standard sets really since Karlov Manor, since they've been designing sets to fit the 3-year standard. We've talked about in the past how like fire design obviously didn't work. It made the standard really bad and caused a lot of bans for a long amount of time. It's very clear to me that they are alternating sets in terms of power level. Where Karlov Manor was not really that impactful outside of the Surveil lands, but then Outlaws of Thunder Junction was, right? I mean, and I think a lot of the Outlaws of Thunder Junction cards that are not seeing as much play now probably will start to see more play soon because there are lots of cards in that set that are very powerful that just probably
Mhm.
need rotation to happen. The stronger cards from Dominaria and Brothers War need to piece out so that way some of the less played cards can see some play. Bristly Bill is one of the cards that comes to
Mhm.
my mind right off the bat. That card is crazy strong and sees relatively no play in standard, right? There should be no
Yeah.
reason for that. Bristly Bill is crazy good. Um,
Mhm.
I think its dollar amount is only where it is because of Commander.
Right.
Yeah.
But it definitely is a standard play. It should be, you look at this first glance, this should be a standard playable card. Um, you know, Taking a look at like Aether Drift, right? Aether Drift, not widely popular. Stock Up, an uncommon, is like the
Yep.
third most highest price card in the set. It's
That's the Chase Mythic right
probably
there.
the most
Yeah.
powerful card in the set, right?
Oh
Just
yeah.
because of its ability. Aside from the Verge lands that make mana good. So, folks,
And
if you're worried about getting standard cards and your collection not being impacted too much by rotation, make sure that you have the Karlov Manor Surveil lands, which are already crazy in price, and make sure you get your Verge lands for cheap before they go up, because
Yep.
that's going to be your strongest mana base moving
mhm.
forward for standard decks.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we just came out of Tarkir Dragonstorm, which in my opinion was a higher power level set, right? Not maybe as high of a power level as Duskmourn. Duskmourn crazy because the
Ooh.
Overlords are very powerful.
Yeah.
But we went from Duskmourn to Foundations, which was medium, right? Meant to be medium to get newer players into Magic, and then um, you started seeing higher level followed by lower power level, higher with here, lower with Final Fantasy. There are some Final Fantasy cards, and we could talk about them, that are, in my opinion, a little powerful. Cards that I want to see and brew with. Um, but I would anticipate Edge of Eternities being a knock it out of the park standard high power level set if they're following that
Maybe.
pattern, that
It would fit.
trajectory,
I
which
Yeah.
would mean
think
that Spider-Man, when it comes out, will also be lower powered and more based on the IP. They did a
hopefully.
fantastic job with Final Fantasy in terms of like highlighting different characters from the games, making sure that the abilities of the cards were true to something that occurred lore wise within the Final Fantasy game,
Mhm.
like trying to get as close as possible. They were there's 20 million legendary creatures in Final Fantasy,
I
right? And
know.
rightfully
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
So
which is
many.
going to make for a very interesting draft environment. So whenever we can get Headology and our
Mhm.
limited experts and Damien too, because you play a whole lot of limited, like
I
after
love
we
yeah,
play
limited.
some of it, like how
Yeah.
much of an impact does 20 million legendary creatures in a set have in terms of like your draft picks? I'm
I
very,
definitely
very
don't
curious about.
I definitely don't like the impact it has on cohesion. I feel like this is the first set I look at and I'm like, this isn't a set of cards. This is a checklist of things from a game. Like this is checklist of things from an IP. How do you like Final Fantasy I was playing before Magic the Gathering was even a twinkle in Richard Garfield's eye. I was sitting there, I mean, as an 8-year-old playing Nintendo Final Fantasy 1. That
Yeah.
came out before Magic, 1987. You're going to cram 40 years of IP into one set? I feel like I'm looking and I'm like, I recognize some of the names and stuff, but like, a Magic set it's set against a backdrop. There's a story. The characters are doing the story is told through the cards. There's a card with the climactic battle against the
Yeah.
the big bad. I can't tell what I'm even looking at with the Final Fantasy set. It's just I know some of the protagonists and antagonists,
Yep.
but a ton of other ones I don't know. There's no overarching story. There's nothing tying it all together. It's just because Final Fantasy, each game is a different world. Like, how do you
Yep.
even do it? You can't. So it's very weird as a set. Like, for me,
Yes.
it just seems like no other set. It doesn't have any cohesion at all.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I'm not gonna sit here and trash talk Final Fantasy
Well,
all day. I'm
but
sure it's gonna be a great set. It just feels weird, but
it's going to be
yeah.
very interesting to see how it plays from a limited perspective because
Yeah.
honestly, come to think of it, like most of the time when you're looking through a set, it's very easy to clock like, okay, this, you have your signpost on commons, but even if you don't see those, you can pretty much track and see exactly what color combinations are supposed to be doing what in the limited environment. Now that I'm really stopping to think about it, like I know the themes around all the different commander decks, but I'm not
Yeah.
confident that I know the draft archetypes,
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
the play, I did have it around here somewhere. I have it in a box because the play booster box comes with a insert card that tells you about the 10 different draft archetypes in it.
Okay.
Yeah, if I find that, I'll
Well,
let you know.
and it's
And yeah,
and
the
I know that
individual
those
cards
inserts you're
seem
talking
cool.
about, I usually just ignore those, but for this one, I feel like I might have to.
Yeah, when you open
yeah.
it, the box, it comes
Mhm.
with that insert like right on top. It's a big rectangle, and it tells you about the 10 different draft archetypes. Um, they actually just came out with an article when they did the release notes for Final Fantasy that has those 10 draft archetypes on it. Um, but we were talking about like something we're excited to play, and I had a bunch of opinions on a lot of the Final Fantasy cards before they came out with the official release notes with the
Mhm.
rules update, and that is they published a
Yes.
pretty big rules update about sagas. And what's interesting is everyone in the Magic community has been talking about how that affects Urza Saga and Blood Moon and Modern.
Can we
Sure.
just clarify what is the rule change?
So the rules update for sagas in Final Fantasy, so this will affect everything. Is it says, there's a lot of saga creatures in this set. So you know, Ham, if you could bring up it's called Summon GF Cerebus, which is a rare from Final Fantasy. I think this is like a
Mhm.
clear explanation of the difference
Yeah.
in the rule. So it says, previous, what would happen with any saga is when a saga enters, you put a lore counter on it, and you use that first ability, right? That triggers. That happens
Mhm.
after you draw at the beginning of your first main phase, right? And the old rule, the rule that most people are used to, is once you hit chapter 3, you would resolve that ability and then you sacrifice the saga, right? That was the old
Yep.
rule. But in Final Fantasy, it brings a saga creatures, and saga creatures have stats, and they also have a text box that might say things, right? The Cerebus is a 3/3, right?
Mhm.
Um, so we were looking at preview cards thinking, oh my god, well, when these hit that third chapter, that ability resolves and then my creature goes away. The new update says that doesn't happen anymore. So instead of sacrificing your creature or sacrificing your saga after the third chapter, that saga is going to stay on the battlefield. It will not be caused to be sacrificed based on state-based actions anymore. So that prevents your saga creatures from not only getting like one turn
Wow.
of like being a creature that can attack
Okay,
plus the ability.
that changes everything. I did not hear that. I didn't know they made that change. That is massive. That actually, because I thought a lot of this stuff is really low powered. Like, yeah, these creatures are just dying, or sagas are
Yes.
just dying, whatever. So now
Exactly,
they're
and
gonna
it
sit
made
there
you
as
think that
creatures.
yeah, and so it
So
makes
what
you think
if?
that some of those cards were not as
Yeah.
great, but now they are much better if they can stay on the battlefield as creatures after the
But
third
it
chapter
says
resolves.
sacrifice after
Yeah.
3 right on the card.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
on
like
Summon
what.
Oh,
GF
does it?
Cerberus, it has reminder text at the
Why?
top. As the saga enters and after your draw step, add a lore counter, sacrifice after 3. Like it still
Yeah.
says, which
What?
has
So
been
as a
the
new
the
player,
Hold
boilerplate
on,
you're
maybe
saga reminder text.
maybe I am
But
understanding this wrong. So
that's interesting.
I'm just going to read direct from their article.
Yeah,
Okay,
please do.
okay.
it says speaking of sagas, we're making a small but impactful rules change upon updated with this release. With the advent of saga creatures, it's much easier to get into a situation where a saga on the battlefield loses all of its abilities but is still a saga enchantment.
Mm.
The result of this interaction was previously unintuitive to many players since the saga had no chapter abilities. The game defined greatest number among its chapter abilities as 0, and no matter how many lore counters that saga had on it,
Got
it
it.
would be sacrificed as a base state-based action once it wasn't the source of a chapter ability on the stack. So usually right
I
away.
see.
So
So
starting with
I
Final
understand.
Fantasy, the rules are updated. If a saga has no chapter abilities, it won't be subject to state-based action that would cause it to be sacrificed due to how many lore counters it has.
If it
Similarly, it
has,
won't be
yeah.
subject to turn-based actions that add a lore counter to each saga you control at the beginning of your first main phase each turn. For example,
Right.
if your summon Bahamut with one lore counter loses all abilities because someone attaches Observe Stasis to it, it won't gain lore counters via the turn-based action until its chapter abilities again until
Right.
it has chapter abilities again. Oh, so my
Okay.
bad. So I misspoke. So if
Okay.
it
Yeah.
loses abilities, then you still
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
keep your
which makes
saga creature.
sense. Yeah,
Yes.
that does make sense. They cleared up the fact
Yeah.
that now it's a creature, so you can put an aura on it that makes it a 0/2 with no abilities. What
Yes.
does that do for the saga? Does it
Nowhere to
still get
screen.
sacrificed? No, you don't
Right.
sacrifice it if it loses
Right.
all of its abilities, which makes sense. I think that makes sense.
That's pretty
But I
intuitive.
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
but once it hits its maximum chapter, you do still have to sacrifice it in its
yeah,
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but
Because I
but the
was
reason
like,
that
wait,
people,
what? That's
yeah,
crazy. These are
but the
super
reason that,
powerful.
yeah, no, that would be nuts. And it would definitely change. There were some brews. I was interested in bringing
Yeah.
Tom Bombadil back, and it's like, oh well, do my saga
Oh boy.
creatures no longer trigger Bombadil? Like, what are we doing? But no,
Right.
those all still work as intended. But the reason that's impactful is Urza's saga is a land saga, and or and right now if somebody plays a Blood Moon and it loses all abilities, the game checks, oh, has it maximized or has it reached its top level? And roll that top level 0, yes, you have, so you sacrifice Urza Saga. So the way that works with Blood Moon is, right now it's you get a bonus little stone rain on top of your normal
Yep.
Blood Moon action. And now Urza Saga just becomes a mountain and it just chills. And
I like that.
yeah.
I think that's a good rules change. Yeah, I hadn't
Yeah.
heard that though. Yeah, I didn't look at the rules updates, but cool. Complicated though in terms of like some of the cards and the way they work is tricky, but it is going to be an interesting limited environment. I anticipate it being very slow because of that kind of mechanic, because your creatures just kill
Yeah.
themselves after a while. It's going to be really weird. I think there's not a
Eventually.
lot of removal in this format too, but I haven't really looked at it yet for limited. But sorry, we're focusing on spoilers today. You want to talk about some stuff?
Yeah.
What are the spicy
Honestly,
ones? Let's yeah.
yeah, I think the saga creatures are going to be interesting because the fact that they are limited is definitely the fact that they only stick around for a short period of time. It will change the dynamic quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want more on that, last week's episode, we talked about a ton, but one of them was Knights of Round, which I think is going to be. I was pretty lukewarm on it, and
Yes.
then Carlo, you sold me on that pretty hard. So yeah, that's good stuff.
The 8 drop. Yeah.
But let's jump into some of the spoilers that have come out since then, and
Yeah.
out of all of them, actually, funnily enough, let's start with Cerberus. We talked about Guardian Force Cerberus, and it has been spoiled since we last chatted. So it is a 3/3 saga dog for 4, 2 red. Chapter 1, Surveil 1. Chapter 2, when you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. And Chapter 3, when you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it twice. And you may choose new targets for the copies.
You thought Monstrous Rage was good before. Let me introduce
Right?
you to Angry
Yeah, but-
Dog.
But you're not going to be targeting Cerberus with that third chapter. And the interesting thing I think about this particular setup is this creature doesn't have haste. And if you don't give it haste, there's only one turn where you're going to actually be able to attack with it, which is
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, the way these
So-
sagas work, if they're 3-chapter sagas, you would get one turn with the creature attacking and blocking, basically. Unless it has haste, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So this card, I'll get to Doppelgang in a minute. But this
course.
card works really well with Summon Brynhilder, which is also another new card that was spoiled since last we spoke.
Brynhilder.
Brynhilder. And listen,
Mm.
y'all, if I'm mispronouncing this, please let me know in the comments because I am learning.
Looks good.
Brynhilder is 1 and a red, is a 2/1. Okay, fine stats for a red card, I guess. Chapter 1, exile the top card of your library. During any turn you put a lore counter on this, you may play that card. So get you a card maybe to play later. But chapters 2 and 3 says when you next cast a creature spell this turn, it gets haste until end of turn. So you could cast Cerebus into this, and then essentially on your turn 4, Cerebus would be 3/3 haste Surveil 1, right? Because you would have hit chapter 3. So that gives you, at least 2 turns with it being able to attack. So I kind of like how that summon plays into this summon. Both probably from a limited perspective, but maybe we can jam some standard mess with it.
I think Cerberus is too expensive for standard, but I think it depends on the spell you're casting with it, obviously. But turn 4 Cerberus, you're going to go turn 5, copy something. So what's the best thing you can copy on turn 5? There's some stuff, but like you're not copying a spell that costs 1 or 2 mana with this, right? That's not good enough. You got to be copying a stock up is pretty insane on turn 5, but I don't. Yeah, it's interesting. I want to see is there any big damage to the face fireball we can copy? Not really, right?
I mean, there is the burn spell that folks were playing in the lands deck.
Fire
red,
Rage,
green, and
World
X.
Soul's
Oh,
Rage.
yeah,
World Soul's Rage.
World Soul's Rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah, maybe, and then get a bunch of
Potentially.
lands if you double it. So on turn 5, you're doing it X's 3. It's okay. It's interesting. It's just 4 mana. I think the other red creature actually has more potential. The fact that it's actually aggressively costed makes it just that is the number one factor for me every time is what does it cost? 2 mana, 2/1. That's already not amazing, but at least it's 2 power for 2 mana, and then it just generates a bunch of value. But then it disappears. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
So what is the best creature you can haste out here? Like we've already got Screaming Nemesis on 3 is probably the best 3-drop. It's already got haste. What is there a better red 3-drop that you can curve this into that makes that just giving it haste is really powerful? Like Cruel Claw, or I don't know, what is that? No, he doesn't.
Ooh,
care
yeah,
about,
Infamous Cruel Claw
he
on
hits
3
you
could
with
be
haste,
could be
right?
fun.
And then he does the thing. Yeah, something like that maybe. I don't
But
know.
then-
But again,
then
like
that's
these
a
kind of
little awkward.
cards.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors to it.
Yeah, when evaluating this kind of card, like copying a spell or giving another, like this doesn't do anything to itself. It needs some other thing to like make it more powerful, right? So the question is, what is the thing that this is enabling? Is that thing good enough? Then yes, this is good enough. If that thing is not good enough, or we already have another thing that's better on 3 or 5 for that dog, then I just can't. Like, how do you explain why would you play this?
But
Yeah,
the other element there is, I mean, we have a number of cards in this set, especially the ones that are themed around the summoners, and a lot of those are in Selesnya, to be fair, that specifically like interact with saga creatures in interesting ways. Like Princess Garnet removes counters from the summons, and so allows you to kind of like re-up the chapters. Like when you can do those kinds of things, if you can remove counters or if you can proliferate, then things could get weird, and that's delightful. So.
That's cool. Yeah.
Whenever we're looking at any of these saga creatures, we do have to kind of keep in mind, like in the back of our head, like some of those interactions might be more powerful than they seem in a vacuum.
That's what
I don't know how
yeah,
likely it is, but I'm gonna try it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Sagas are sweet, and they just give you free value. It's like having a little mini planeswalker in play that ticks up every turn and does a thing, and you don't have to spend any mana. They're better than this is how planeswalkers should have been designed as sagas. I do love sagas. So it is weird having a creature though, because it feels so weird just having the creature only be able to attack 1 turn, and then it comes in, it does a thing. 1 turn you get to do something with it, and then the next turn it's gone, like on your beginning of your main phase. It's very strange, but we'll see how it plays out. I'm very curious.
Yeah. And
I don't know about you, but I'm casting Doppelgang with this card.
Yeah,
this thing says I get to double spells at a triggered ability that happens at the beginning of my first main phase. We are copying Doppelgang. And not only is Doppelgang going to make a copy of the Cerebus so I can keep doing it the rest of the game, but I'm also going to be making bunches of copies of whatever the hell else I want. Imagine if we get this on Saga 3, if we Doppelgang the first Cerebus, it comes into play, I Surveil 1, I get on the double, right? And then I get to triple plus make more copies of Cerebus. Every turn I'm doubling or tripling whatever the next spell is that I am casting.
Yeah. I think the move is to make sure that you're targeting Doubling Season and Knights of Round in that exchange, so that Arena just explodes. Like I think that's
Yeah, Doppelgang is
yeah.
the one card that's crashed Arena for me more than any other card.
Oh,
Back with Real Souls Rage decks,
So,
tap a
somehow
force to
I
make
didn't crash it the
13,000.
other day, but I most certainly did 4.3 million damage to somebody because of Doppelgang.
Nice.
And
There you go.
and that was with a really big Overlord of the Hauntwoods. And I had Doppelgang, I had like 6 or 7 doubling seasons out with Elsbeth, and we won the game in one turn from putting 4 million some +1/+1 counters on my Overlord of the Hauntwoods. It was glorious, and that's the type of jank that we're here for. This is what we were playing GF
Nice.
Cerebus with.
It's it's
Yeah,
so
it'll be good in those kind of shells.
That's 100%. So that's at the end of the day. Is this going to be competitively viable? Probably not. Is it going to be particularly good outside of limited? Probably not. Is it going to be really fun that one time it does the thing? Oh yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I don't think you understand me, Him. I don't just do it one time. Like we
no, you need to copy
it. The thing is, I love to do it consistently. You're talking to the player who can jam Beans and Overload the Hauntwoods into any shell, and it just works, right?
It does.
As long as I can land my turn 3 Overlord of the Hauntwoods, we are golden.
Oh.
I have perfect mana the rest of the game. Nothing else matters unless you blow up my land, and if you blow up my land, you're getting emoted.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, it is what
and
it
you
is.
deserve it.
100%.
Okay,
All
so
right.
those are 2 interesting red ones.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Going back to Brynhilder just really quick.
Oh yeah.
It's unfortunate that I think a card like Brynhilder won't see much play because of the already strong red cards we have in the format. Because you have to convince me that this is as good as Manifold Mouse. And it's not. It's not as good as going Heartfire Hero into Manifold Mouse. No. And so,
or Corey Steele, or Spear into Slick Shot maybe better than this.
Yeah, the 2-drop red spot is a really coveted position.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, what can you do?
Hotly contested, but having options is good because as the metagame evolves and standard changes, maybe the decks change. Maybe I don't know what would again change the fact that Manifold Mouse is so good, but maybe something happens that makes this better. I don't know.
Is there some opportunity to run something like Brynhilder alongside like a helping hand kind of a shell, where being able to recur it out and continue to get these modes alongside other aggressive threats? I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but I can't help but wonder, like, if you can recur these sagas and keep getting these triggers repeatedly, maybe there's some value there. And helping hand was just the first thing that came to mind, but now notably notably with the or Dewdrop Cure is going to still be around. Maybe there's something there. But the final mode, so we're talking about recursion, the last 2 chapters on Brynhilder, they do specifically say when you cast a creature spell this turn. So creatures entering don't trigger it. They have to be a spell. So fellow Luris and other recursion fans, sorry. But but that is good to know. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the design on that is definitely curious.
Their enchantments. I mean, can you imagine if they put some kind of open the flood, or what was it? Open the gates. You bring all enchantments and artifacts back from your graveyard to play. Open the vaults. Imagine they print some effect like that. That suddenly makes a bunch of these saga creatures insane, right? If they're all enchantment creatures, they are all enchantment creatures, right? So
they are.
Yes. I mean, that's 6 mana, but if they put a newer version of something like this for 3 or 4, like that could be busted. We're already seeing some pretty gross. Yeah, like I played a little bit of that artifacts deck in standard, blue-white artifacts with that new 4-mana sorcery, and that thing is nuts. Like there's a couple cards like that they've like they keep printing cards like that. Like look at the top 6, look at the top 7.
United Battlefront.
Put all this stuff into play. It's like we'll see. It'll be interesting, but Sorry, what's the next one there? You had it on the screen.
No, all good. No, the other one that I flashed on the screen was Brilliant Restoration, which was another take on kind of the Open the Gates from Neon Dynasty. So not that long ago, and they were doing stuff like this. But 7 mana, awfully expensive.
Trying to think of
tough to pull off.
But a reason to play the Saga creatures over the mice, maybe one reason is their enchantments. Because if there's something like a reason to care about enchantment or pulling enchantments back or what have you, right? So
I'm also curious if any of them are going to see play in like the Enigmatic Incarnation builds.
That
like in Pioneer. I don't know. Just there's probably something there.
Right? Yeah, at least 1 or 2, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
value.
Speaking of Pioneer, we are still awaiting an announcement upon the next year's
Don't hold your breath.
formats of choice.
Wait, just yeah.
It's finally
I
on
don't know
Arena,
what
kind of.
they
So
hate.
hey,
They hate Pioneer. I don't know what it is. They keep doing it dirty. I don't know why. This is the second time they've abandoned it, basically.
yeah,
But anyway,
yeah. Anyway, so
spoilers.
we were talking about multiplying stuff. We were talking about doubling and tripling, and there is
Okay.
a card in this another one that I want to touch on, and I want to see is there anything here? Tifa's limit break. So they have limit breaks, and like the limit breaks and also the classifications of magic in this game, like fire magic and whatnot, are treated with a new mechanic called tiered. And tiered is kind of similar to Spree, except with Spree, you pick as many modes as you want, as long as you can pay for all of them. With tiered, you pick one. You get one additional cost. And so Tifa's limit break costs a single green, and it's three different modes are her three different limit breaks. So Somersault is 0. Target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Okay, so crappy giant growth. Next up, Meteor Strikes, where it's a green and 2, so total cost of 3, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. And then the final one is triple, target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. So, but that one costs freaking 6 green in total. So it costs 8 to triple stats. Is this just like a limited combat trick? Or is this some yeah, what are our thoughts?
I don't know if it's good enough for constructed, but I love the templating. I love this modality. It's not quite as powerful as Spree, like you said, but just giving yourself options. This is like a monocolored charm, you know? It's like a monocolored yeah, I guess the charms would be the kind of the thing I always go to for modality spells, or like the epiphanies or whatever, but they're more powerful. I like it. I think it's great. I don't think it's going to be good in standard. I think it's probably not doing enough, but like still 3 mana to double power and toughness, 1 mana for +2/+2. Like the sacrifice, the trade-off for the modality is that, of course, the power is lower on all these modes, right? Or like you're overpaying a little bit for what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
ahead,
we
yeah.
actually have giant growth in standard, right?
Yeah,
So you
right.
could just play giant growth and get the extra +1/+1.
Yeah.
But when I saw this card, it made me remember Bulk Up, which is in Foundations and is legal for 5 years. Bulk Up is 1 in a red. It's an instant. It just double target creature's power until end of turn, but it has flashback for 6. So for me, that Tifa's Limit Break costs 1 more to have essentially a similar effect, right? It doesn't flashback. I can't play it again later. And I don't think paying the ultimate on Tifa's Limit Break, excuse me, I just refer to it in Planeswalker terminology. It's ultimate, Final Heaven,
Yeah.
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 triples. I don't think that's necessary because Tifa, herself doubles power and toughness when you landfall, right? So you're trying to say, how can I break? No pun intended. Tifa in this format, right? Can I play Tifa on 2, and can I win the game on turn 3? Is that possible? So you either need to put a bunch of lands in play or pump this thing to high heavens and then play your land somehow with only 2 mana out. I don't think you could do it for turn 3 in standard, but you probably could do it with 4, and it has to probably involve a monstrous rage, right? Probably. It could just be giant growth and give +3/+3. And then you play a land, double its power. I think you might need to play an additional effect. So, in essence, in this set, it wants you to play Tifa's Limit Break on Tifa, right? But I have to play my land first, so we can't do it on turn 3 because it costs me 3 mana to do this. So on turn 4, let's assume that Tifa has connected, right, on turn 3, and you've dealt some damage to your opponent in an aggressive deck, right? And that Tifa somehow, in all of its wisdom, survives through removal, which probably means the Tifa deck needs to play Snakeskin Veil, which is a standard legal, right? Like, so Team Protect Tifa. On turn 4, can I cast Giant Growth, which makes it 4 power, play my land, put it to 8 power, and then cast Bulk Up, which puts it at 16. Is my opponent probably dead? Yes. But you can't do that with Tifa's Limit Break because it costs 1 mana too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's awkward.
there's also ways to do it. Like turn one Llanowar Elf into Tifa into Fabled Passage is going to be lethal on turn three. I think that's not
Hmm.
hard to do.
Mm.
I think getting a double land drop should make it pretty straightforward, especially if you get in a little bit of damage on turn two. It depends. I'm trying to think of other pump spells. What is the biggest power for mana like value in a pump spell that we have? Like Monstrous Rage is +3 power for 1 mana. Giant Growth is +3 power. Is there anything that's more than that? No, right?
Nope.
I don't
It's
think
just
so. Yeah.
three is it. Okay. So I don't know. But again, I see these kind of like you know examples of people like when I don't know Agatha's Soul Cauldron was spoiled. People were like, "Look at this! You can kill somebody on turn three with this card and this card and this card. And if you get all these cards
Mm-hmm.
exactly lined up, and your opponent's a goldfish, then you can kill them on turn three." It's like, but that's has
Oh,
that
there's
ever happened? No, none of these decks have ever put up results in
Yeah.
standard because it's so easy to break this
yeah.
stuff up.
I
That
think I
like
saw.
you said, you have to play. Yeah.
I believe there is a cacophony scamp turn one
Oh
kill
yeah.
With
possible if
Callous
you have the
Spellsword,
If
yeah.
you have
perfect
the
seven
perfect
cards.
seven and you
Yeah,
start with
it's-
Leyline in play and you're
You're
like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Like,
that is
but,
theoretically possible, but like, yeah,
yeah.
statistically
So,
not.
but
Yeah.
it is
Anyway.
powerful. Like we do have Fabled Passage. I don't. I mean, there's other fetch lands. You could put Evolving Wilds. You could put other stuff in the deck if you
Yeah.
wanted to try and
But yeah,
really do
so
it. But
yeah, so we were talking about Tifa's Limit Break, and that just got us talking about Tifa Lockhart. So this card, I don't. It's a 1/2 for 2 in green with trample, and whenever land you control enters, you double Tifa's power. So this thing, it reminds me very much of the Devilish Valet, where it
yeah.
doubles if certain conditions are met. And so,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's Mossborn Hydra on 2 is kind of what I'm seeing here.
Mhm.
I don't know, I want to believe we have enough fetch lands legal in the format between Fabled Passage and, we still have Terramorphic, although Terramorphic was in Duskmourn, wasn't it? So we have Terramorphic and Evolving Wild. It's not that we need 12 of those in any deck, even something like
There
this,
is
but you
the
could.
other one from Karlov Manor that also
Oh,
makes a
Escape Tunnel.
creature unblockable. Escape Tunnel. Yep.
Oh, Escape Tunnel with Tifa could be disgusting because you can
Yes.
make her unblockable with one Escape Tunnel, and then if you have multiples out, or maybe Spelunking or some other, an Aftermath Analyst isn't going anywhere. So
Right. Does this fit
There's
into that
also-
shell? And yeah.
do we
There's
bring that
also
back?
Green Dragon puts 2 lands into play on turn 3. The Adventure Omen Dragon. There's a couple cards that like actually just fetch 2 lands and put them into play. So
Right.
there's stuff, but she's a 1/2 for 2. Like she's a 1/2 for 2. She dies to
I'll-
literally every
I'll say it,
one
dies-
mana
dies to
removal
cut
spell in
down.
the format. Yeah,
Dies to cut down
bolts
even
and
if you keep a fetch
chalks.
land back to use it defensively, because she still only
Yeah.
becomes a 2/2 with one.
It's not her toughness
Yeah.
doubling ever, so she's very fragile. Good luck.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say. I mean, you probably fit this, like I said, in a deck that you got to play Snakes in Veil. We used
Yeah.
to see Snakes in Veil played in the older Gruul aggro deck, so that's not out of the capability of being playable. You can also build like a Selesnya thing with Snakeskin Veil and Shard Mage's Rescue from Duskmourn, and Sheltered by Ghost probably fits in that deck pretty well. I mean, doubling Tifa's power with lifelink also seems kind of crazy.
Why not throw in ethereal armor at that point and just like make
Sure.
her
Yeah.
like Voltron and then double her power and that'll
Yep.
do it.
Exactly.
Ooh.
But anyway,
Yeah, I like that
we'll
idea
see.
of doubling her power before hitting your land drop. That actually is a really cool idea. Like just
Yeah,
buff her
like, pump her up.
first and then
and
crack
then
a
play
land. Yeah,
play a
okay.
fetch land and that's it. They're dead.
That's GG's,
Um,
sure.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how it'll go. I know lots of people are going to be brewing, and it'll be interesting to see what people come up with. But I don't know. Standard's in a very aggressive place right now. It'll be interesting to see if something like this has legs. But
Indeed.
what other bangers do we have from the spoiler?
So speaking of lands, so the idea of lands entering untapped, I want to talk about the Wandering Minstrel. And not just because it's a dude with a kind of long unkempt hair and glasses. That's irrelevant. That's but so Wandering Minstrel is a 1/3 for green blue with lands you control enter untapped. And also has this ability, the Minstrel's Ballad, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 5 or more towns, create a 2/2 elemental creature token that's all colors. And then it has this weird activation for 3 and Wooburg. Other creatures you control get +X till end of turn, where X is the number of towns you control. So, what are our feelings on this?
Are towns good?
Great question.
So towns
If
are equivalent to gates, if you remember gates, Damien,
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
I'm,
So there is
I'm.
a town for every dual color. Um, but
Oh,
the
I thought
plus
they
is
were.
there
Oh,
are
okay.
colorless towns as well,
Yep.
including starting town, right, which is
Oh
your
yeah,
Starting
yeah,
town
new
is,
Painland,
yeah.
and
Right,
also
right.
you have colorless towns. I think isn't I don't think Clive's Hideaway is the town, is it?
I think it might be.
There
Well, are the
definitely is an uncommon one. There's Eden, which is the land I like wanted to talk about in the last podcast, but it hadn't been spoiled
Yeah.
yet. Yeah, Clive's Hideaway. That is a town. So that cares about Hideaway and legendary creatures. That's its own confangled looking card.
Well,
okay?
But
and I believe all the adventure lands are towns as well.
That's what I was
So,
gonna
yes,
ask. Yeah, the
hmm
adventure lands.
yes.
Okay.
there are a lot of towns in the set. Yeah.
hmm
Hmm.
So yeah, they are all towns, and then there's Eden, Seat of the Sanctum. That taps for a colorless, but lets you pay 5 colorless, tap it, mill 2 cards, and then you get to return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand, which I particularly like the effect on this card, especially since
Hmm.
it naturally comes into play untapped. Um, but why does it matter for that legendary creature to create a token and then plus X plus X? So that's got to be like your ultimate, right? Like, do I win here? Am I able to assemble this? I mean, in standard, you have, we mentioned Splunking, right? So if you have
Yep.
Wandering Minstrel plus Splunking, you have multiple lands enter untapped. There is a fetch spell, 3 and a green in the set that searches for 2 towns, puts them on the battlefield tapped, kind of like Circuitous Route did with Gates.
Hmm.
So you have to be able to assemble something where your Wandering Minstrel resolves, doesn't die to removal, and then hopefully you have enough mana to where you can pump all of your other creatures while fetching for
Yeah.
lands at the same time. So it's
And the
less intuitive than Maze's End combo, right? You probably should just play
yeah,
Maze's End combo. But fun fact
yeah,
is you could play this in Maze's End, and then your Gates enter untapped.
Yeah.
So I would just play some amount of this in a Maze's End deck rather than play it in a Towns deck.
Yeah.
interesting.
I honestly, I see this as having a whole mess of text on it, that like way more than you need. Honestly, I think the real question is just 1/3 for green blue lands enter untapped. Is that good enough? If the answer to that is yes,
That's
great.
it.
If the answer to that's no, nah, just keep moving.
Yeah.
Especially the Wooberg activation, that is just so clearly an excuse to make it a 5-color commander. That's all that looks like to me. Is to just we want this to be a commander that you could build a 5-color towns deck in commander with. Like,
Yeah.
okay, neat. Like if anybody wants to do that, have fun. But like
Yeah.
when the design intent is just as naked as that, I don't know, it kind of turns me off a little bit. Which I know that I really enjoy Kyodai, the Soul of Kamigawa from Neon Dynasty. Exact same deal. All right,
Yeah. Yeah.
like 100%
Yeah.
same thing. Same with Party Tazri from Zendikar Rising. Like there's a whole history of cards where they do this, where they throw a Wooberg activation that is kind of irrelevant just so you can play it as your commander. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think this
As
is one of those
as
cards that is overly complicated, and you get very little value outside of the lands entering untapped. But that effect on 2 feels pretty good, I think, or at least it could be.
Modern
Yeah.
players have been talking
maybe.
about putting this in the Amulet Titan deck in Modern
Mm.
just to play it for the
Yeah.
ability of your lands entering untapped. It's like
Hmm.
playing your Amulet Vigor on 1, playing this creature on 2, and then you essentially get this ability to put your bounce land into play untapped, and then the triggered ability of Amulet, so you get to float 4 mana on the next turn, in addition
Yeah.
to doing other things with your lands. But at the same time, it also opens up like Fatal Push being good against you, where that's like
Hmm.
typically
Yeah.
a dead
And
card in the
lightning
Titan
bolt
matchup.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
As a
Well,
constructed player, I don't see it ever in
yeah,
standard or anything, but yeah.
I'll be
We'll see.
surprised, but at the same time, I also do wonder. I mean, we do have a Gates package that was in Foundations, so I know I tinkered with that in
Sure.
Standard. Like, could we build a control deck with the Gates package? Didn't play well the last time I tried it, but
Yeah.
with things like this in there alongside Spelunking, maybe it's worth revisiting, or maybe a handful of folks will be
Yeah.
handing out some free wins on the ladder as they try to make
Uh-huh.
that work. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. So
It's
we'll see.
it's so interesting because like in that Gates deck, you want to play Wraths like Split Up and Day of Judgment, and that makes playing this card worse
Yeah,
because you don't want
funny
to
how that
Wrath
works.
away this guy. Yeah.
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 Oof.
It's a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff in this set. I feel like it's very clear commander placements. Like you
Yeah.
said, the 5-color activated ability and everything.
Well,
What it makes me wish is that they split up Final Fantasy into 2 sets. Not one separate for Commander, but I feel like a lot of stuff was jammed into one set that could have taken multiple sets to put out there. Like if you told me that 2026 Magic the Gathering, 3 universes in, 3 universes beyond sets, and all the universes beyond sets were Final Fantasy, and you split up the game into 3 sets and made 3 standard playable sets of cards, I think I would have preferred that. Because then it would have kept all of your Final Fantasy players interested to collect Magic and play Magic throughout the entire year with different cards that will eventually come out, get them to buy regular Magic cards, and then you could still print the amount of cards that you want Commander players to play, plus competitive Standard players to play in those sets. I don't know if it would have been more difficult from a design perspective to do that. I don't know if Final Fantasy has enough characters and iconic moments for 3 Magic sets worth of cards. I don't know any of that.
I think they do.
But
Yeah.
I think players would have hated it.
yeah.
Players would
I'm
have
sure
gone
like
crazy if they
Magic
announced
players
that.
who aren't into Final Fantasy though.
Yeah,
right?
like they'd be like, what? 3 sets of Final Fantasy? Yeah. But I know what you mean. You're right. It feels like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff jammed in. That's what I was saying before. There's like no cohesion in the set, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff they left on the sidelines too. But yeah, I don't know what the solution is there. I just think it's too big an IP to tackle, really, is what it is. But because, yeah, like you said, you could do a whole year's worth of sets and still, I don't know, maybe not even touch everything. But
Yeah.
Possible.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
what's next? What do we have on deck?
So let's talk about
Diamond
another
weapon.
diamond weapon. So let's talk about an optional side quest from Final Fantasy VII. So diamond weapon is an 8/8 for 9, 7 green. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each permanent card in your graveyard. It has a reach and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to diamond weapon.
No trample.
It does not have trample, but I mean, this is an 8/8 with reach for 2 that can't take combat damage.
That is good.
That's
But,
nuts,
yeah,
right? Like,
You're still losing a Corey Steel. They're just gonna chump this with a Monk token and kill you
I
on
mean,
the
sure.
backswing. But,
unless
you know what I mean?
You have
Like,
monstrous rage. No.
yeah, that I was gonna say. If you have any way to give it trample, now we're talking.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
or unless there's a way to. Oh no, it's combat damage. Yeah, so you could still burn this out. You could still. I mean, it takes a lot of mana, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's
you
an
could
8/8.
still,
I mean, we've seen those Golgari decks, those Golgari Beanstalk decks that are running like Hollow Marauder and,
those ones, yeah.
the Writhing Necromass or whatever. Just because they're like 5/5s and 6/5s or whatever for 1. Well,
Yeah.
is it worth it to play an additional 1 for the biggest version of that? Now, it
Maybe.
is legendary and it is an artifact.
And it is double green.
And it
that's
is
a
double
cost,
green.
Like,
So
Yeah,
it's so
maybe.
fun. It is. I think it speaks volumes to the position we're in right now. I remember paying 7 mana honestly for Thorn Elemental and thinking I was doing just it was perfect.
Oh,
How
yeah.
could you beat this? And we're
Florida Pit
genuinely
back
looking
in
at
the day.
this at an 8/8 that will often cost as little as 2 mana, and it's like, is it good enough?
and still not be good enough.
And we're still not sure.
It's not good enough. Sorry.
It's wild.
So somebody asked on limited resources, I think last week, if they printed a card that was a 7 mana 1/1 that said, if you on your next upkeep you win the game, would that be good enough? And they were like, well, actually that might be good enough because if you can just protect it, right? If you could probably build
Right.
a combo deck around something like that and just protect it. But it would
Sure.
literally have to be something like that for it to see play.
Mhm.
Like you could print a 20/20 for 4 mana, and like if it was a vanilla creature, it wouldn't be good enough. Probably
The
right?
vanilla test is so wild right now, and it's
Yeah.
interesting to see how it scales because like a 2/2 for 1 would actually still be decent, I think. But like the moment you get even to 2 mana, it's like is a 3/3 for 2 vanilla like is that good
Listen,
enough? Like
We stopped caring about vanilla creatures once Watchwolf didn't matter anymore.
Oh,
Right?
my
Remember
goodness,
playing
yeah.
Watchwolf in Standard back in the day
It was
and
good.
how
It was
crazy
great. great.
card that was.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have evolved far and beyond that.
We sure have.
When I first saw this card, I know it's not the same, so tell me in the comments, because I already know it's not the same. Bring up Hogak, Arisen Necropolis for a minute, Ham. Because when I saw this card, it kind of reminded me of Hogak. I know it's not the same. It doesn't have Convoke. It doesn't have Delve. But
like,
Hogak did cost 7 mana, and notably 2 green that you actually had to pay. Diamond Weapon, if you're putting it in the most mana efficient deck, will only ever cost you 2 mana to play, right? Both creatures are 8/8s. One has reach, one has trample. They are both legendary, right? One you can cast from your yard, one that you can't. I mean, clear difference in power level, uncommon array. But to me, these two cards are similar because if I'm trying to play this card in standard, I'm playing Seed of Hope, I'm playing Cash Grab, I'm essentially playing the Eddie Merc Crab deck with this card inside, right? And Eddie Merc Crab already has Tolarian Terror that reduces it, but cares about instants and sorceries. Eddie Merc Crab, same thing. This one particularly cares about permanent cards in your yard. But let's be real. You're talking about the Eddie Merc Crab deck that's just throwing cards into the graveyard.
Well, it's like that green
Gobbling
black
up
deck.
and all the lands back. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ham mentioned that green black deck that top aided the Pro Tour, but then it immediately fell off and has not put up any results since, because it ends up. I think the issue with these kind of decks is the reality is you're still putting all your eggs in these, maybe not one basket, but 2 or 3 baskets, whereas your opponent's making like 12 creatures, and they're all free because they're coming off of Quarry Steel or off of some other thing that's making tokens. And it's like, so those green-black decks still struggled, even if their big, expensive creatures were cheap. The best creature in that deck, when I was messing with it, was the flyer that ETB'd and made them discard a card. Because now at least you're doing something, This is not affecting your opponent's hand or their board or anything else. It's just a big, giant dork, and big, giant dorks died of cheap removal. Let's say, even if it does cost 2, it still dies to go for the throat, and you're, even... That's like, you're not up there, and you went all this work to like make it cheap, right? So it's I just don't see it. If it had trample, it would be pretty interesting. That could be something. But
yeah, you could play this in a deck with like Garrick's Uprising if we really want to play that card, right? That card is in Foundations, right? And so we haven't really had any like strong playable decks that cares about playing a 3 mana green card that draws a card, right?
Yeah, it draws
a card, right? It does nothing, but it gives the creatures trample. It's sort of like the we've been playing a deck occasionally that takes advantage of like Fecund Green Shell and wanting to put lands in your yard to pump Fecund Green Shell's ability to pump your team. We also talked about like Ancient Adamantoise, which is in this set, right? It's an 8/20 that redirects all damage to it. I think Diamond Weapon sort of like fits in this type of a shell too, because hopefully your yard is filled to some capacity, and it just enables you to get like your big booties on the board. But the struggle with that type of a deck is there's no consistent way to give your creatures trample. And I think Garrick's Uprising does a good job of that, but it's too slow. Like, I don't want to play Garrick's Uprising on turn 3 and then maybe not play a creature on 4, right? So there's got to be some easier way that just says, hey, my creatures just always have trample or something like that to make cards like this like super playable.
Yeah, or a creature that gives other creatures trample. At least then you have a body that's actually contributing to your plan of, I do want to attack and kill them. So the thing that I'm giving trample with hopefully attacks and helps kill my opponent, right? So you'll see. It's another big creature. Maybe if there's a critical mass of these things, then eventually that deck might be better. And we'll see.
And it might just mean that the green decks need to start playing like Hunter's Talent in abundance, right? Hunter's Talent from Bloomburrow. I think level 2 is what gives an attacking creature +1/+0 and trample. It doesn't give it to all creatures, but the first ability is a removal spell, and then you just pay 2 mana, and it makes your big beefy dudes attack with trample and attack through things, which is pretty important.
And notably, this is a removal spell that is a permanent. So if it is milled or your opponent answers it and it goes to the graveyard, that counts towards the cost reduction. So that actually sounds like a really good fit. Yeah. Also,
see.
isn't it amazing how the line "prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to diamond weapon"? Isn't it amazing how irrelevant that line of text is?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, removal is good. Removal has to scale with the power of the creatures, so to
Mm-hmm.
keep everything balanced. And so now, because the removal's good, you got to be a really good creature to warrant, to see play in high level standard. I'm
Yeah.
mostly focused on standard here. Other formats,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different story. But
Yeah.
um,
Oh, the other thing that I'm thinking of that I can't help but so ancient adamantoise, mentioning that there's talk about possibly like what happens if you use parination on an ancient adamantoise, like just to make sure that you just don't take damage again. Like
Oh, yeah.
that is just a fun little lockout. Diamond weapon would fit in a deck trying to do that, where you're milling your deck consistently, and this is just a big beefy body. You could the other thing that I think of with this is it's an it being an 8/8 that you cannot gang block to kill. I feel like sheltered by ghosts on this thing would be really frustrating to try to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, because the amount of life that
Maybe.
you're gaining and the ward makes it a little trickier to remove. So I want to live in a standard where this thing is a menace, not just like kind of decent. I want this to be like problematically strong, and it's wild that it's just not. So yeah, but it'll be interesting to see because I think this might see play. The price is right. So another one, I'm curious, you guys' feeling on this one. Memories Returning. So shifting from green to blue. Memories Returning is a sorcery for 2 blue. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand. Then choose an opponent. They put one on the bottom of your library. Then you put one into your hand. Then they put one on the bottom of your library. Put the other into your hand. So you're looking at 5 cards. You're putting 3 of them into your hand, but your opponent has you get this little mini game with your opponent. It's almost Factor Fiction style, but a little bit different. And then it also has flashback for 7 blue.
I mean, it's not. I think the misnomer here is, oh, you're drawing 3 for 4 mana, which is already not amazing in standard, but it's not drawing 3. You're drawing 1 good card, then you're getting a mediocre card, then you're getting a land, guaranteed. Because if there's any lands in the top 5, that's good. Your opponent and you are not going to pick them.
Yeah.
You're getting 1 land every time, and you might get 1 good spell and 1 decent spell. Very rarely are you're almost never getting 3 spells, and you're almost never getting 2 good spells, because the second best spell is always going to the bottom, right? Out of whatever the 5 are. If there's 3 lands and 2 spells, you get boned hard. You just get 2 lands and a spell. Like, that's basically the rule of thumb is anything that lets your opponent choose is bad in Magic, right? We all know that. If there's any card that says your opponent chooses, they've never been good enough, and that's why. Because unless you can somehow break the synergy, Gifts Ungiven, but I only get 2 cards, and now you have to put them both in my graveyard. And now I can reanimate something. Like, that's a different thing. We're abusing that, but this is straight up. You get 1 good card for 4 mana, then you might get another. Not even the second best card. You'll get the third best card. And then you're going to get a land. You're going to get a land third every time. So that's what it is. It's not draw 3.
Yeah.
And then, so, you look at it in that light, it's sorcery speed. It's 4 mana for draw 1 good card, 1 maybe decent card, maybe just 2 lands. And then the flashback is 9. I mean, if they wanted to make this even remotely playable, they should have lowered that flashback cost. It's way too high. Or give it, not delve, but I don't know, some way to make it cheaper maybe. But so I can't ever get behind a card like this. Not when you have stock up in standard. Why would I ever play this?
Lining this up to next to stock up is wild because it's like, well,
and it's an uncommon. This is rare. Like, what are we doing? This is what I mean about the power level overall in the set feeling like weirdly like reined in almost. But yeah.
But meanwhile, I think of this in Commander, where the table dynamics are such that depending on the opponent that I choose, maybe we can, if I've allied myself with one of my opponents temporarily, maybe they can hook me up and maybe I get 3 really killer cards.
Your way into it. Okay.
But like that kind of back and forth can create a fun dynamic, in a casual Commander pod. So this reads to me like a card that was designed for the Commander product, and they just kind of shoehorned it into the standard one. Is what it feels like to me.
That 9 flashback, it seals that for me. Yes, it's exactly what you're saying. It's a Commander card. Yeah, you could totally tell.
Yeah, but, I can't see playing this in a deck that you already have access to stock up. That card is just so powerful. This would have been more playable if you told me that it put the cards my opponent picks into my graveyard instead of the bottom of the deck. Then 100% I slam this card, right?
Yeah.
And then that makes right. Yeah, I would think that this 100% sees standard play if it puts cards into my yard. Um,
Yeah.
but
Or
yeah,
if it was an
there's no
instant.
way. Like in a deck
Yeah.
that I want to play
Yeah.
stock up. I mean, stock up has versatility of being able to play it like in the prowess deck and in a control deck, and this doesn't because I never want to tap out on turn 4 to play this ability at sorcery speed. If you told me
Hmm.
this was like Memory Deluge and I could play this at instant speed, 100%, I have a playable card that my control deck wants to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I don't think there's any deck in standard that wants to pay tap out 4 mana to play a sorcery to put one card that matters in my hand when I
Yep.
can hold
Never.
up 5 mana to play stock up plus removals.
Yeah, I mean, not
Right.
only is it stock up cheaper, I think a lot of people discount one blue versus two blue. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge difference. I think mana sucks right now, and a lot of people are like, "What?" But there's so many dual lands, blah blah. Yeah, they all come in tapped. The verges often don't make the colors you want. There are two color decks that are aggressive decks that still struggle with their mana. My blue red opponents in the RC, multiple had like Shivan Reef with two verges in play, and they were just like I can't,
Mm-hmm.
they like couldn't do what they wanted to do. I mean, look at the Pixie deck. Look at like three color decks have to make concessions to their mana base, play a bunch of come in and play tap lands. I mean, yeah, so yeah, double blue versus single. I mean, there's so many reasons why this is worse than just, stock up. But but yeah, I'd like to see a good card draw spell come back. Like stock up's already great. I shouldn't say we're
Yeah, no,
jumping to
stock
the
up's
line.
fantastic, but yeah.
But
Well,
memory deluge made me remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, some instant speed thing. But
yeah.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Ham
Well,
was up.
the other one with that is the Marang River region. Like Coil and Catch,
Oh yeah,
the Omen
right.
on Marang,
That's
seem
solid.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I feel like that's kind of fitting that role.
you're
Um,
right. You're right.
yeah. Awesome. Well, I only had one other one that I had kind of set aside. We're already 2 hours in. I have a feeling this one is going to be a
Oh, boy.
similar response. So the Masamune or Masamune, um,
Asamune,
Masamune,
Masamune.
I think.
Hmm.
That's
that
what
works.
my friend Darian said.
Sounds right to me.
And I trust, I trust Darian on that. All right. So Masamune, which that sounds like like an Italian pronunciation. So that's which hey, rock on.
Yeah.
It's a legendary artifact equipment for 3. As long as the equipped creature is attacking, it has first strike and must be blocked if able. Equipped creature has if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of this creature. Or an emblem you own to trigger that ability triggers an additional time. It's Sephiroth's sword and it works with Sephiroth. Do you guys get it? It's a
I got it.
all right. Anyway, so
Got it.
so how do we feel about this thing? I mean, it's a sword, right? Cost 3 to drop, 2 to equip. So unplayable in standard, right? That seems to be the general consensus when it comes to this templating.
I think equipment in
Mm-hmm.
general is unplayable in competitive constructed Magic. The only equipment that's playable is the equipment that equips for free, like Corey Steelcutter or Batter Skull was great, or and that was a long time ago. Like, I mean, if you're not cheating, if it doesn't like create a creature and attach it to itself, or automatically attach to a creature when it comes into play, like Ember Cleave, or one of these kind of things, it's just not good enough. Like, you're not paying 5 mana and like leaving yourself open to getting blown up by a removal spell, and your 2 equip mana is wasted when you go for it. Like, there's just so many. It's gotta equip automatically for free, or it's not good enough. That's my take, but.
Yeah, this
What do you
bode's
think?
similar to how last week we were talking about the Buster Sword, right?
Yeah.
And Buster Sword is not legendary. Also costs 3 and also is 2 to equip, right?
Oh.
And
Mm-hmm.
Buster Sword, it lets you cast a spell for free out of your hand, right? Equal to the damage or less that the
Right.
When you hit
creature
them,
that
yeah,
a
yeah.
Buster
I
Sword is
think I
attached
remember it.
to
Yep.
does. And we were talking about whether or not we think that this is actually playable in standard, right? So it's the same stats, 3 to cast, 2 to equip. So if by that standard Masamune is not standard playable, then that would mean to me that Buster Sword also isn't standard playable. Granted,
I don't
one
think it is.
equipment gives you +3/+2, one gives you no stat boost, one only cares about a triggered ability, causing an ability. There are so many other cards in standard that do this ability
Yeah,
without having to make you have a creature equipped with
Mm-hmm.
this.
yeah.
Um, so I don't think so. I don't
So
think the lure ability of this equipment makes it particularly interesting unless you are putting this onto just like generally death touch creatures, right? Death touch
Mm-hmm.
first strike is appealing to me. But how are you then putting this on a creature? Because so far, from my understanding, The only cards that are worth it in standard to play anything equipment wise in are cards like Kembaka, and I think we talked about this last week, like something
Yep.
that auto attaches the equipment to, or one
Yeah.
of the equipments that, like you mentioned, Damien, like Batterskull, has an ability that automatically generates a creature and gives you the equipment attached to it. So in Final
Yeah.
Fantasy, that is something with job select.
Right. Job
Yes.
select.
That
Yeah.
creates a 1/1 hero with the equipment auto attached,
Now,
right?
if
Or
that
for
sword had
Muradin,
if it had job select, I could get maybe behind that. Like that's what I'm talking
100%.
about. But without
Yeah.
that, this like I never want to put a card like this in my competitive
No,
constructed
because the
standard
equipments are
deck.
too slow, and
Yeah.
the cards that help out equipments right now are in Dominaria United or Phyrexia. All will be one, and they all rotate in 2 months.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for the amount of equipment that are actually in this set, you would hope that there has to be more equipment support coming in standard,
Well,
because otherwise,
but okay, I don't know what the number is here, but I'm sure you can go and gather. I bet you in standard right now there's uh I don't remember the names. There's a bunch of white red legendary creatures that all care about equipment in some way or
yes,
another.
Oh
I'm
my
pretty
goodness,
sure
they're
there's like at
everywhere.
least half a dozen, right?
Yeah.
And none of them are good enough. And this is kind of an extension. Equipment is so bad that even the creatures, cards that care about equipment aren't good enough because the thing they care about is just so hard to make it good, right? The one equipment comes along that's free to equip and it's busted in half, like Batterskull, like
yes,
Embercleave, and now like Corey Steelcutter. But without the free equip, like playing another card to make it equip for free is it's like playing one mediocre card to make this mediocre card better. It's like you
yep.
end up like where does this end, right?
Well,
And there's a couple cards that care about equipment in this set, right? Like, so
mhm.
Cloud, we talked about this in the last one, right? Cloud Midgard
Yep.
Mercenary is your 2 mana that lets you search for an equipment card, right? And it puts it in your hand. And
Yep.
Cloud triggers an additional time. So you could put Masamune on Cloud, which is probably kind of sacrilegious in terms of the Final Fantasy games. It
A
has
little
to be,
bit.
right? And
Oh yeah.
and you could get some effects that way. You can get double triggered abilities of something. Who knows what it
True.
does? Um, but there is a sorcery in this set. It's called From Father to Son. It is a rare,
Hmm.
in fact, in white. It's one in a white sorcery. Um, oh no, I'm thinking that is equipment. Sorry, that's the vehicle card.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking of Cloud in terms of equipment, like search for
Tutoring
equipment.
up. Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
it's only Cloud, right? Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So
Well.
Yeah.
so we talked about the equipments that have like job select, and we talked about this card in the last podcast,
Mhm.
Machinist Arsenal, um,
Yeah.
the 5 mana one that makes you a 1/1 hero, and it gives it +2/+2 for each artifact you control and each
Mhm.
artificer you control. Like playing this in the Simulacrum Synthesizer deck, right? With like Repurposing Bay. Like I want the equipments to do this power level of a card and a little bit
Right.
cheaper to make
And
them worth
cheaper.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. But this deck or this set does have some creatures that do allow you to freely equip stuff. There's
Right.
not a ton, but there are a couple. Like one of them is Raban Bull of Alamigo, which is actually the English name for this thing. Crazy, I know. It's a 2/2 for 2 with ward pay life equal to its power, and then whenever it attacks, you attach up to one target equipment you control to target attacking creature.
Hmm.
Does this
This
kind
is
of
what I mean.
effect help with that stuff? I mean,
But it's bad. This is a bad card. So again, you're playing a bad card to make another. Like what happens when you don't have an equipment and you just have this idiot, or you have the equipment and not this guy? Like they're both bad on their own. They have to do something on their own. Like pay 2 life to kill this. Okay, like that's not good. You have to untap and attack with this guy before he does the thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't see it. I just
I do.
yeah.
I feel like this guy opens up the possibility for a truly insane busted 3-drop equipment to be
Okay.
viable. Not that we've seen that yet. No, I don't think we have the 3-drop that's actively insane. But like, if we got a 3-drop Colossus Hammer, all of a sudden I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, yeah. If you have,
So like,
something that gross,
but at the
maybe.
same time, like Colossus Hammer is whenever we talk about equipment, I feel like it always comes down to, it either needs to give you value by itself, which the classic template doesn't, or it needs to basically win you the game once it gets attached. And in Colossus
Yeah.
Hammer, it's easy to cheat around it, and the amount of stats you get for it is insane.
Hmm.
And so
Wins the game usually.
it can
Yeah, yeah.
it can win you the game on the spot. And
Same
yeah,
with
right now,
Embercleave and
Yeah, exactly. And so we right now, and it's funny, I genuinely sometimes forget, like when we talk about equipment, I forget that Corey Steele is an equipment, because
Yeah,
like yes,
right.
it is, but
Nobody's
like
equipping it. Like nobody's
no,
paying
you're
the
not paying.
equip cost
No,
ever.
if I'm going up against a red base deck and they have Corey Steele down and they actually pay 2 to equip to something, I'm like, sweet, they don't have it. Like
I know.
yeah,
I'm like,
you're
yeah,
like
cheering.
woohoo, like that's their best option. Let's go. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, but yeah. So anyway, it's interesting. They're trying. Also, another shout out to another equip card that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. Beatrix, Loyal General. I'm just glad. I'm a big Final Fantasy IX fan, and I just love that Beatrix got a card. 4/4 for 6 with Vigilance, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may attach any number of equipment you control to target creature you control. So just pick one dude, and they get all of them. So all the Mirrodin lovers out there who just have a million, Bladehold War Whips and things laying around, like, here you go. This is just a card that could work with it. It's a 6-drop that requires setup. I know it's not going to be competitive, but
why
it's
not
fun.
make this card cost 4? Right?
Yeah, like make it a little bit more.
like a
give me
2/2 that.
4.
Yeah.
No, I even make it a 4/4. It wouldn't still be overtly powerful, right? 4/4 vigilance
Sure.
for 4 mana, fine stats. If I played 2 equipment on the board before this, and I get to equip 2 automatically to this creature, it's still subject to any removal, right? It's still
Right.
not even.
Sure.
It's still not even powerful enough for standard. If this thing
No,
costs
because
4 mana.
you took
Oh,
turn
wow.
3 and turn 2 and turn 3 off to play an equipment and do nothing. You're dead.
Right.
Like, what do you
Right.
mean? Yeah,
There's
like
no
it's funny.
reason
Fair
that
enough.
this card needs to cost 6. Let it
Yeah,
cost
no, you're
cheaper and let
right.
people try to break it. You know what I mean?
Again,
Sure.
I think it's a nod to Commander. If it was cheaper, it might be too
Mhm.
busted in Commander, where you're not worried about dying by turn 4. Well, not usually.
But, and interestingly enough, Beatrix is from Final Fantasy IX, which is a game that did not get its own commander deck. And also, if you look at Beatrix, Steiner, and Freya are all cards in this set that I didn't expect to see. I do wonder, and all of them care about equipment. So I do wonder if there was like a Final Fantasy IX commander deck that they were working on that was like red, white, and cared about equipment in some capacity.
Well, they made Cloud's commander deck care about equipment.
Oh,
Right?
so maybe they were like, oh, we need
Limit Break. It's called Limit Break, and it's got Cloud in it. I think it's Final Fantasy VII.
Yep.
He's looking
And
over to
that
the
is
side.
right.
Do you have it? You have it sitting over there?
Yeah, I have it somewhere.
Nice.
Hold on. Wait 1 second.
I was gonna say I didn't even know these commander decks were tied to each. Each one is tied to an
They were.
individual game in the series. Oh,
Yep.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
I have it. And
so-
before the commenters flame me in the chat, I'm one of your ambassadors for Final Fantasy. That's why I
Yes.
have this deck in advance of release. So
Call
just,
the
you know,
Pinkertons.
FYI.
I know. Oh my
Um,
god.
But yeah, Limit Break, and they released to be honest, they released the commander list like 3 weeks ago before any of
Yeah,
the standard spoilers.
Yeah,
Right.
But Cloud's deck is an equipment deck. This is Final Fantasy VII, right? Yeah.
Naya?
And so
Yeah.
maybe they couldn't put that card in this deck because it's from a different game, I imagine.
Yeah.
But it would
be.
fit in here because it's got a bunch of crazy equipment.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
because they did 7, 6, 14, and 10 are the commander decks.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Which I
Equipment.
think-
The last thing.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
What?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the weird thing about equipment, and I think the reason you don't see a lot of great equipment, well, I don't know. Again, every once in a while we get a Corey Steel cutter, but the typical equipment that you have to pay to equip it's a little too dangerous to make it too good because again, all of it is usually colorless, so you could play it like they really have to be careful with colorless cards and pushing them, like with Reckoner Bankbuster and Smuggler's Copter, and we've seen so many over the years.
Yeah.
Those aren't the same as an equipment, but you know what I mean. Like a really busted sword or whatever it is could be just a little like GT, right, or whatever back in the day, a little bit too busted. So I'm not surprised that's why people who love equipment, it's like you're always going to be disappointed. And probably, I mean, if you're doing the I want to play a card that lets me equip all my equipment, Beatrice or whatever, like that's yeah, I don't know, but Beatrix,
Beatrix. I think it'll be a fun. This will be a fun commander card. Equipment commander decks are fun. If you want to do that, cool.
Yeah.
It's very fun to play. I've had the opportunity to play a couple games with it, and it's pretty sweet. Again, though, it's a commander equipment deck where that format you can play whatever you want, and not worry about its level of playability. But like
Right.
putting this card into a standard set doesn't make much sense to me because it's overcosted and you're never casting it.
Yeah.
It might be
Totally.
a bomb for limited, I'd bet, with the amount of equipment in the
Maybe.
set and attaching all your job select equipment that you play to it on turn 6. Maybe that matters.
I mean,
Um,
if the job select cards are wide open and you end up with a crap ton of them, sure, I can appreciate like
yeah,
if that's the seat you're
Yeah. If
in the
you
draft,
drafted a
okay.
deck to right.
Yeah, with
And
a
you're
bunch
probably
of
gonna
job
get
select,
past
this could be a
this.
fun. Yeah, this could be a fun
If it
finisher.
gets
Yeah,
opened, nobody else is gonna take it, so
yeah.
you will be the only person probably
probably. Yeah, there's a good chance
in
that.
position to play it. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, that could be interesting. This would be a fun pack one pick one to see like how that draft lines up. Like that could be interesting. You'd
Hmm.
probably be eating
I'm
pretty
looking
good, I
forward
would imagine.
to
Yeah.
limited. I think it's going to be wild. I think I like a lower powered limited set. Like again now, or I don't know. There was no other spoilers, right? Before we move on here.
No. I mean, there
Oh,
there
Carlo?
there are 200
There
cards we haven't
are.
touched
I
on yet,
just
but
want to
like we
talk
can.
about one
Yeah.
more, and
By all
it's
means.
Last one.
it's
Last one.
it's an uncommon, and I do
Okay.
think it's standard playable.
Ooh.
It is aside from the obviously obvious ones, right? Um, but X Death Void Warlock is a new
Ooh. Okay.
preview. It is legendary
Okay.
though. Yes, it
Yep.
is a 3/3 for one a black and a green legendary creature spirit warlock. When it enters, you gain 3 life. So solid stats, gain 3 life for 3. At the beginning of your end step, if there are 6 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, you transform it. And it transforms into Neo X Death, Dimensions End, which is a
Okay.
star 3 trample equal to the permanents in your yard. So at minimum, this thing is a 6/3 trample on the flip side, right?
On
Because
your end step, it
on your
transforms.
end step is when it transforms. So
Mm-hmm.
you can play this thing
Okay. Yeah.
whenever and immediately gain 3 and flip it into its transform side. I think that something like this is standard
Interesting.
playable. And the gain 3 life is relevant against the aggressive metagame. It blocks almost anything, right?
The 3
And then it
toughness has me worried though.
well, I mean, they could have probably made this a 3/4. And then it probably would have
Star.
been more,
If it
right,
was
rather
star
than
star, I
X3.
could see it. If it was star star, that would be gross. And
Oh
it
yeah.
has trample, that may be even too good. But 3 means it dies to nowhere to run, lightning strike, torch the tower kicked. Like there's so many things. The Elspeth smite,
Yeah, I'm
maybe.
intrigued. It reminds me a lot of Souls of the Lost, which, to be fair,
Mhm.
does like in certain
This
decks
deck.
that can be pretty powerful. And the only reason that isn't a more popular card, I think, is because it doesn't have trample. A 20,
Mhm.
a 2021 can be dealt with, as long as
Yeah,
it
right.
doesn't trample. And but this thing having trample natively, yeah, you're right that the 3 toughness makes it a little vulnerable, but that could be a ton of power and it's relatively cheap. So,
Yeah,
What about
it's synergistic with a couple different cards in the set.
mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned Souls of the Lost, which is in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, right? I mean, that goes in the same deck where you play like
Yeah.
Gnawing Vermin and Tyvar, maybe if you really want. Um,
Mhm.
but we talked about Summon Titan, I think, last week.
Yeah.
That is the 7/7 for 5 mana. The first chapter is mill 5 cards.
Yep.
Two is
this
return
guy?
all
Yeah.
lands from graveyard to battlefield tapped, and then another creature gets +X/+X and trample. Itself is a 7/7 reach trample for 5. So you're talking about in a format where you can play Llanowar Elves on 1. You could play this thing as early as turn 3, probably more frequently on turn 4. But you could definitely play X Death on turn 2 off a Llanowar Elf. So gain
Yep.
gain
Mhm.
3 life, put this in play. Granted, the flip side is not going to happen for a while. But assuming you're on a Golgari deck that is using things, or you're on a self mill type of a deck,
Yeah.
you're talking about, like I said, Gnawing Vermin. If you want to really go Sultai and play the 2 mana creature from Eldraine that like mills yourself for 4, that also grows. It's like a Souls of the Lost. Like that fits into this type of a shell that I think Summon Titan sort of like rounds out at.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I'm
don't
here
like
for
that
it.
Summon Titan pulls the lands out of your graveyard. It's not a May, is it? So you're shrinking your team by doing that. Like, assuming you have a few lands in there, like all these cards care about permanence in graveyard, whether it's
Mhm.
souls or that thing, or the 8 draw, the diamond weapon, or whatever we were talking about there.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
All those
Which
cards.
also would fit in here. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a big deal. Mill 5. I would just be doing what you said before, the Seed of Hope, cash grab, that kind of stuff. That seems probably the best way to do it. But because this guy, pulling them out, maybe.
I'm
If you're
intrigued with the
ramping.
opportunity. Honestly, in my experience, so I do Golgari graveyard nonsense pretty consistently. Like it's kind of my favorite place to be. And
We know.
I know it's crazy. And in my experience, that splendid reclamation effect that you get on Chapter 2 of Summon Titan, like for me, I mean, especially when you're talking about more casual formats like Brawl and Commander, like if you can get that off once. Like the chances of like the little, like the advantage meter on the bottom of the screen would be like tipping in your favor big time.
Yeah.
The amount of ramp that you can get if you've well stocked your graveyard going into that, it cannot be overstated. Like the number of times that I target Lumra with my first reanimation spell, even if there's a better, like even if an Atraxa is in the bin, like there's a time and a place for it, and I think another way to get that is phenomenal. So I like Summon Titan quite a bit actually. It's kind of it's hitting all the right spots, and X-Death. I'm inclined to agree that it's a little narrow in its application, but in that situation, it is a 3-drop, so you can reanimate it off of Helping Hands or things, like the cheaper effect of No One Left Behind, which I think everyone has left behind, ironically enough. But like for 2, you could reanimate this fairly easily, and it allows you to turn the well-stocked setup graveyard into a kill shot, and more opportunities to do that is good. So
you're right.
I can appreciate
I was
it.
thinking at first, I'm like, oh yeah, because you could play like a Jund Shell with Bitter Triumph or whatever and discard, and then you give it haste. But then I'm like, wait, no, that doesn't work with this because it transforms on end step. And I'm like, so you can't one-shot. You can't just ball lightning people with this.
Yeah.
You have to have it sit and play a turn, and that's a big drawback. I don't know. And with 3
is there a way
toughness,
is there a way to flash it in? Maybe like a Life or Death is an instant speed reanimation spell for 5. Like, but if you're instant speed reanimating, why aren't you grabbing Valgavoth? So that's
or a Tali or
a Tali or exactly. So
my answer's biased.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of your end step. You can't flash this in on your opponent's turn and transform.
Oh,
it on
you're
their
right.
end
Yeah.
So
Dang.
that wouldn't work either.
But
trying to
but
break
at the same
it.
time, I know we need to find a way.
So hard.
Yeah. Well, Final Fantasy V didn't have that many cards in this set, so we need to really lean into the ones we got. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to playing with all these very soon. I don't know what you guys are going to be doing big streams on the early access day. It's this Wednesday or June 4th. I don't know when this episode's going to come out.
It'll come out before that.
It's gonna be fun.
In the next few days. Yeah. But so June 4th is going to be the streamer access event. Early access event. I know I'm going to do my usual like play one draft and then just tinker and constructed for hours upon hours upon hours. So
I'm doing something crazy this time. I mean, more crazy than we normally do. We do 24-hour streams every time there's an early access event. Last time I did it was Tarkir 24 hours. We're like, I don't know, 18 hours, 19 hours in. We had done like 15, 16 drafts. And I was like high platinum, my rank. And as I'm playing against people, other people from other people's channels come into mine and go, how are you platinum? And I'm like, and they're like, oh, you've been streaming for this long. And I'm like, yeah. And then somebody said, you should try and get mythic one time. And I'm like, yeah. So I basically decided this is going to be my first time. This is going to be, I think, the first time anybody's ever attempted to do this, as far as I know. I'm going to stream my usual 24-hour stream, but I'm not going to play a single game of Constructed. I'm not going to play Sealed the way I did last time. I'm only going to draft, and I want to see if I can go from Bronze 4 to Mythic in one shot, in one session. I don't think it's ever been done. Jim Davis and all these other content creators do the Bronze to Mythic thing, but never in one stream, right? I don't think it's ever been done. And the fact that we all start at the same rank means that I can't cheat, I can't game it, I have unlimited gems. People are telling me it's impossible. And I said, okay, let's see if we can break down the numbers here. It took Jim Davis 23 drafts with a 60 to 65% win rate to get Bronze to Mythic in 23 drafts, obviously over multiple streams. And so can I do 23 drafts in 24 hours? I think I can. And I have to carry a high win rate, though, like 20 hours in after streaming. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. So it's the perfect challenge. I think it's going to be hilarious. That's what I'm doing this Wednesday. So Constructed, nothing else for me.
Honestly, I think the biggest challenge isn't necessarily just can you keep going, but like when you get into the wee hours of the morning and you're trying to find that 21st, 22nd, like
and the
Will
games,
there
right?
be
'Cause-
anyone on the on the
yeah.
ladder to actually pair against? Like, I don't know. We'll
Well,
find out.
they
I mean,
switch
there are
us to
folks
quick
from all over the
draft.
world, so presumably,
Yeah,
like, but
around 2 a.m. Like 3 a.m., the wee hours in North
Mhm.
America, they switch us
Yeah.
to quick draft, and because the
Mhm.
pods stop firing, like there's like three
Right.
people, and we're waiting for like 10 minutes. So there's like this delay there where yeah, it's gonna slow down, and then as soon as we get to quick draft, it'll speed up again. But then you're
Yep.
right, again it slows down toward like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Because I think most content creators, even the ones in other regions where it's daylight, they're not jumping into stream with like 3 hours left. Like nobody's just starting their stream at the end of they did it yesterday, or whatever it was.
Well,
So
I usually do, and I'm there.
you
I
do
try to
another?
be.
Yeah.
I do a split shift usually, where
Okay, well,
I do go to bed
nice.
and then come back in the morning and hit it again. I do.
Okay, so there
But
might be
at
a
the same
little
time,
bump from that.
oftentimes when I jump back in the morning, I'm finding the same 2 or 3 people on the on the constructed ladder, and we're just queuing back and forth into each other until the server shuts down. That's usually how it
Yeah,
goes. Because
yeah.
you're right. The activity is much lower the following.
It like goes
the
up and
later in.
down.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know if it's possible. I think if you draft aggro every single draft and the drafts just go quick, then
Sure.
maybe. So we'll see. I'll
Good
let
luck,
you guys know
man.
what happens.
Yeah.
But that's
I'm
my goal.
honestly, so the morning after, I might have to jump into limited, so that you've got
Oh,
somebody
bonus.
to queue into.
Yeah, sure. And then just like give up, just like feed me wins.
Yeah, just scoop, hand you some wins. Okay.
No,
No,
but
I'd make you earn them, but
yeah, good. Yeah. We'll see what happens, but
yeah, fun stuff.
I do have a
Oh.
question of the week
Yeah,
if it's
fire
that
away.
time, if we're wrapping up.
It
I
sure
don't know
is.
if you guys have know about this, but let me just pose this question to you. What is the record for the longest round of competitive Magic the Gathering that has ever been played? I see Favretto already nodding. He knows the answer to this, I think.
Well,
What do
I
you
know
think,
there
Cam?
was I know there was a CEDH finals that recently took 11 hours.
Okay, yeah. So you guys have heard about this. This bananas thing happened at this SLC 10K. This is the finals.
Yeah.
That took 11 hours. But when I heard the story, I mean, so CEDH is apparently a giant gong show. Like the format has so many issues. There's so many draws. There's this debacle happening, and there's just all these things people complain
Mhm.
about in that format. But yeah, this everybody's been talking about this 11 hours. Like, how is this even possible? And apparently it was
Mhm.
one dude just like filibustering the whole time for hours and hours and hours. And then it comes out later that, he had a flight to catch the next day. So at some point he was probably like, okay, if I can drag this out, I can force this to a draw. And, like looking at the stats, it's something like, in a 4-player game, like if you go first, you're 25% chance to win the game. If you go second, it's like drops to like 17, and then third, you're like, and then fourth, you're 13. But the chance to draw a game of CEDH is 25%. So it's like the number of draws are insane. Like you're equally likely to win the game going first or draw the game regardless of where you go. If you're in the bottom half, like second or third or fourth acting, to act.
Yeah.
It's like
If you're third
yeah.
or fourth, are you just playing to draw every game? Like that's
Well, half of the games, the dude who went first is going to win, or it's going to be a draw, and your chance of winning is like 13%. It's so silly. 11 hours. Can you believe it? What happened with the judges? What happened with the play? Who let this happen?
were
It's
there
crazy,
so
right?
when it comes to CEDH, I have no problem with CEDH being a thing. I'm actually very glad that there's this distinction between casual commander and like competitive no holds barred gloves or off go nuts commander. I like that we as a community have made that distinction. The fact that there are tournaments with like money on the line for it though seems like that's the part that I think is absolutely ridiculous. And that's the issue here. Because if there wasn't money on the line and I'm in a commander pod with somebody and they start like pleading their case and genuinely start filibustering, even if I'm in a position where if this stack resolves, I win. If it's a casual game of commander at like a convention or at a local game store, I'm just gonna like accept that this person's a dick, scoop and walk away. But if I have a chance of winning, $5,000 or whatever's on the line, like I'm
The finals of a 10K.
then I guess you've got me. I guess I'm trapped here now. And God, that's miserable. That is
Well,
such a
there was another big tournament over 100 players that a known cheater won. There's like cheaters winning tournaments, and they're allowing them to still play CDH and stuff. It's so weird to me, but I
yeah.
thought it was fake. I'm like, yeah, somebody for 11 hours, sure. Like, give me a break. That can't be real. But I'm like digging into it. I'm like,
No.
this happened. There was a video of it. They had VOD of it on YouTube, but YouTube doesn't save the VODs because if it's over 12 hours, they won't save it. They won't archive the VOD. So it's gone now. Nobody has this VOD. Not like I'd watch it, but I just wanted to like, is this real,
Even
Yeah.
even YouTube didn't want to deal with it. That's how long that
YouTube wouldn't
was.
allow it. Yeah. Wouldn't allow it to be archived. So
Oh
I
my
thought it was
goodness.
insane. It kind of took me
That's
down a rabbit
absurd.
hole of what were the longest games. Apparently, Gabe Nassif in the top 8 of a pro tour. This is way back in like 2004 or 5. I don't know. He was playing Martyr of Sands deck, like life gain deck, and
Mm-hmm.
it took like 2 hours 2 hours and 45 minutes to finish the match. I think
Believe
that
it.
was
Okay.
the longest I've seen or I've heard of any match of like sanctioned event Magic, taking. However, like that's the record.
Right.
I think it's 2 hours and 45 that Gabe Nassif. So I think that's the answer. This 11 hours, I don't even know if you want to count this. That is absolutely the most crazy thing I've heard in like 30 years of Magic. I've never heard it, and I'm talking way back with Shahrazad days.
Oh my
Even
god.
with Shahrazad and Karn, Karn Liberator, whatever
Karn
he was called,
liberated,
the one
yeah.
from Stars Liberated, he could reset the game. Those games, sometimes crazy stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
Never like this. 11 hours. That's just absolutely
Hmm.
Yeah.
like, at what point do you just, somebody says this is enough, like force the
Yeah.
game to go on? I don't know. What do you guys think of this? Is this like total failure on the TOs and the judges,
I don't know. I
or
can't
who
comment
cares?
on the particular tournament or whatever. I think that's
Yeah.
ridiculous that something goes on that long. When you're
Yeah.
playing I don't know. I don't play CDH. I don't play it for because I don't. I enjoy the social aspect of Commander and
Mm-hmm.
not the competitive nature of the format. If we're gonna sit around and just like talk a bunch and like argue with each other on who's gonna let whose spells resolve, I mean that gets rid of the fun for Commander for me. But hey,
Same.
some folks CDH like doing that is fun for them, which is hey, not gonna yuck somebody's yum. But like 11 hours is kind of ridiculous. If you were playing in a competitive Magic setting in any other capacity that's not CEDH, you would be asked by a judge to make a play, or
Right.
you get your warnings that are compiled upon you that result in slow play, and then when that happens, you start getting game losses and stuff like this. I don't know if CEDH for some reason does or does not have a similar system, but if you are playing in an event that gets you money like that, and there are judges there to enforce rulings, there probably should be a ruling that prevents all of that nonsense from happening, right?
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in a game of competitive Magic, let's say that my turn takes like 5 minutes, right? Which is probably relative coming from a commander point of view, right? Like you should know like your kind of place in advance playing commander. At least in casual commander you do, right? But in CDH where you have like I guess a defined metagame where all of the decks are playing similar cards and folks are winning with like Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation, to each their own. There probably should be a thought process on if my opponent has something like Force of Negation. Okay, this person's going to counter it, but I guess that what happens is this person has a conversation with this person and this person that says, I have this card. Should I cast it now on this person's thing? And then this person then is making a deal with the other two people. You shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
It
Multiplayer
shouldn't it
Magic.
shouldn't take
Yeah.
that long. Your turn should probably be max a couple minutes long in that format, and that prevents that from happening. And then
Mm-hmm.
judges are like enforcing that time play. But then you're talking to somebody, sit here with a clock and track the amount of time that it takes you to take your turn, so on and so forth. Because then you're having conversations. 11 hours?
Yeah, it's like it's
If
That
that
doesn't
mind-boggling.
make any sense to me. What could you
I know.
possibly talking about for that
Cloud of
long?
Fairies. That was what
Yeah, yeah,
most
yeah.
of that
But
those
what
hours was apparently. But I have no idea what they
what
said.
could
Yeah,
you
I don't
be
know.
talking about that causes that to happen for that long of a period of time? Like,
Yeah.
what do you do? Sit at the table for 20 minutes and have a discussion? Like, if you're playing in a finals of a tournament, you're playing for money. At that point, just like scoop it up, split the prize, and go home. You know
And
what
the
I
irony
mean?
is that that's ended up what they ended up doing, right? They drew.
Yeah, like
But it
why
literally,
even bother
yeah,
getting after that thing? How that after that got past like a half hour, an
Y-
hour
r-
of
Yeah,
discussion,
even an
how that
hour's
didn't end there?
already.
Why there was no
Yeah.
intervention?
yeah.
Doesn't make any
I mean,
sense.
if that we would have this exact same conversation, and this exact same thing would happen if it was a 4 hour round of match. Like
Yeah.
like the amount, like the 11 hours, it got well past asinine a long time ago. By the time you get to there,
Like
it's
I don't know what the
oh
time limit is in the CDH tournaments. I have heard that there's like a
Yeah.
90-minute time for a match, right? I think I've heard that when I was at an SCG con once, and I was like playing in the command zone, like just playing casual, and there was the CDH 5K or 10K, whatever was going on, because they have those regularly at SCG cons. And
Right.
I believe I heard the judge say you have a 90-minute timer. They like are assigning who's on what seat, who happens first, the whole nine. So, that's the same thing in competitive Magic. We have 50 minutes on our timer. After the timer, there's a series of extra turns, right? After time is called, or when you get to a top eight of a tournament, a top eight is untimed, but you're expected to play at a reasonable pace. When you don't, judge intervenes and starts awarding penalties. So that
Yeah.
shouldn't be different in CEDH. If you're playing in a tournament and there's prizes on the line, there should be some intervention there when stuff like that happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I was just like flabbergasted. Like I actually just straight
yeah.
up couldn't believe it. I didn't think it was real until I dug into it. But anyway, so yeah,
It's nuts.
I wanted to hear your takes on that, but it's pretty much what I
That's
what I thought too.
wild.
I thought
Yeah.
maybe there was some commander rules that I wasn't aware of. You guys play more commander than I do, but CEDH, it seems like it really exemplifies the worst kinds of players almost. I hate to judge
Eh,
everybody who plays CEDH, but
I
it
don't know
seems
about
like
that, but
Yeah.
when we're playing casual commander at a table, if our game, it's not unlikely that a game goes for an hour.
Sure.
You start.
sure.
To me, I bicker back and forth with people when we're like an hour and a half in the game, and you decide to cast a Sunfall or some type or farewell is like
Mm-hmm.
the iconic. Like, did you just farewell the board an hour and a half into this game? Can we scoop and play a new one? I'll pick a different deck, right? Like,
Right.
to me, the game's taking too long. It's a different story if like we're all hanging out over my house and there's food and drinks involved and we're just hanging out. That's a way, way different
Mm-hmm.
than
Yes.
that tournament atmosphere.
You're
And
right.
I
Yeah.
genuinely question if multiplayer Magic in a competitive tournament environment makes any sense whatsoever. Like, it just seems
Yeah.
silly to me because, like, king making is inevitable in a 4-player pod. Like, when
Yeah.
people are like, oh, we have a house rule of no king making, it's like, how in the world do you avoid that? Like, it's just, and how
Yeah.
do you judge what
How do you
is or is
prove it?
not king making? Like, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like, when you get to the later into commander games, you have it's like if the decks are evenly matched, you often end up in a situation where one person maybe not be in a winning position, but they could be in an eliminating a player position. It's like, well, that just happens. It's a normal course of the game.
Yeah.
And so the notion of tournament brackets being associated with multiplayer Magic just seems odd to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
In
Yeah.
the same
And
way, how I don't think Brawl on Arena is a casual format at all because it's 1v1.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, in my experience, Brawl is an epic sweat fest consistently. I know that they've weighted the matchmaker to try to, like, minimize that so people are getting good matches kind of no matter what. But, like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
there are certain, like, if you see an untapped island, they have a wash away in their hand every single time, which is counter target commander for one. Like, it's there.
Yep.
Like, and honestly, it's 1v1. Why wouldn't they run that? Like, of course,
Yeah.
like, it's just optimized. It just is what it is. And 1v1 Magic maps to competitive. It's not. I'm not saying you can't play casual 1v1. You certainly can, but it's an attitude. It's it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're trying to structure a tournament, 1v1 makes sense. 4-player
Yeah.
rounds, that seems nuts to me. Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully we never
Yeah.
see something like that ever again, and any other
Right.
TO or judge out there can see this and go, okay, well, these guys are going on for an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is. We don't want a repeat of what happened at the SLK, whatever it's called,
Mhm.
10K. Crazy.
I'm sure they're rewriting the rules, right? I'm sure they have since
Yeah.
then, because there's no way they
Anyway.
can let that happen again. Yeah,
Crazy stuff.
interesting stuff. And thanks for bringing that up because that was a wild headline.
Yeah. I assumed you guys had heard of it. I just thought I'd mention it, but
Yeah.
anyway.
That was a cool discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got the streamer event for Final Fantasy coming up on Wednesday the 4th. So tune in to all of our Twitch channels for that. Also, if you haven't, if you're listening to this and you have not been on twitch.tv in the Magic category during a streamer event, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is a gigantic party and all of your favorite creators are there. It's so much fun. And the other thing that I love about being a part of it is, I'm playing my games, and when I get paired up against somebody, like a lot of the times people will like have both streams open and be able to watch the game from both perspectives. And every now and then, even afterwards, you get chatter, from people who are watching from the other side who like let you know, like, by the way, man, on turn 3 when you did that, they were pissed. Like, all right, those kind of conversations and just the vibe of community in the category is just so much fun. Yeah. It's great.
And nobody's cheating. Like nobody's coming in and going, hey, he's blah, blah, blah. No. People could be doing that. I've never seen it once. Nobody's ever doing anything. I
have a feeling, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point people did that, but I know, speaking for myself, and I think it's safe to say for most people in the category, if somebody does start doing that, like if they pop in and say, by the way, they have blah, blah, blah in their hand, one, I'm not going to trust some just random stranger I've just met, but honestly, I'm at the very least timing them out, if not just kicking them out of the chat, because like that's not... That's just unsportsman and just not cool in general. So people aren't people and streamer. I have never seen a streamer, even the most toxic or the most maybe aggressive streamers out there. I've never seen a streamer ever like ask someone to go cheat on their behalf. That's just not a thing.
No. Yeah. But it's just people in chat going, like you said, they have both streams up and then they want to, but it's never happened. I've never encountered it.
No.
And the best part, honestly, is people get to cheer on their favorite content creators when they end up playing against a really well-known pro. Like it's fun to cheer one of you guys on when I see you're playing against Reed Duke or some like insane Hall of Fame pro, and it's like, oh my, like, come on, you could beat him, like try, it's because you're the underdog here, right? It's fun to cheer for the underdog usually.
It's a blast.
So it's great getting to play against all these really good players and stuff. So like Ham said, you got to check it out.
It's so much fun. Yeah, definitely come check it out. So this Wednesday. Anything else that you guys have coming up that you want to let people know about?
That's it for me.
Just to mention, for the streamer event, most of the time I'm playing viewer brews. So if you want to stop by, submit a deck for me to play. I enjoy playing y'all's decks. I always have something brewed up, but it's something that's sort of been a tradition over on my stream. So you'll see me playing your decks against your favorite creators rather than my build. And then on that weekend, on pre-release weekend, I do live streams from my local game store, the comic book store in Glassboro, New Jersey. So you can catch me on Friday starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We play 2 pre-release events, 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. So building a deck, playing 3 sealed matches with it, winning prize, opening boosters, all of that fun. And then on Saturday, I start at 11 a.m. Play 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m. So 3 different sealed decks. Let's 9 different matches of Magic and booster pack openings and stuff like that. So that I've been doing for, I don't know, the past 3 years now. We've been doing them every pre-release. So so that'll be going on then.
Cool. Yeah. You'll love to see it. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. This is an absolute delight. Viewer, listener, thank you for tuning in and thank you for sticking with us. We really do appreciate it. So we'll be back next week, and take it easy, everybody. Later.
Bye.